Chapter 2243. The stone city of the desolate country had long been the focus of attention. The news of the 9 demon emperors' appearance in the stone city spread like a storm. The demon king Du Xiaofu and the others actually broke into the devil religion's demon emperor palace and rescued the weapons sovereign Xiao Fenglei and the others. How bold of him! It is said that the devil religion's demon emperors are extremely powerful and terrifying. I heard that the demon king Du Xiaofu also killed the 5 demon envoys of the devil religion and fought the 9 demon emperor above the stone city. Heavens, the demon king Du Xiaofu is actually so powerful! Back when the devil religion and the divine light court destroyed the 7-star hall, they took away the weapons sovereign Xiao Fenglei and the others for some reason. The demon king Du Xiaofu is taking revenge. The demon king Du Xiaofu is the disciple of the weapons sovereign Xiao Fenglei. With the demon king's personality, he naturally won't let this matter rest. It is said that the devil religion is extremely powerful and will turn this world into a demon realm. It seems that the rumors are a little exaggerated. The demon king Du Xiaofu broke into the demon emperor palace. Everyone was discussing animatedly, causing an uproar. In the dusky space, demon chi fluctuated. Faint roars of beasts and cries of ghosts could be heard in the distance, making one's heart palpitate for no reason. The Black Palace was magnificent and ancient, lofty and majestic. It was strange and intimidating. At the head of the palace, the great demon emperor's dwarf-like body was wrapped in strange black scales and filled with demon chi. His black hair reached his shoulders and his arms hung down to his knees. His withered hands emitted a dark color, and strangely had 12 sharp fingers like ghost claws. At this moment, the great demon emperor's face was very gloomy. He looked at the 9 demon emperor and said in a hoarse voice, "You underestimated that kid too much. I was careless, and that old tree also interfered. Next time, I will personally deal with that brat." The 9th demon emperor was extremely ruthless. This time around, he had suffered quite a huge blow. Initially, he thought that after his primordial spirit was freed, he would be able to move unhindered in this world. However, he did not expect to suffer such a huge setback this time around. There are still a few troublesome fellows in this world. They aren't easy to deal with. The great devil emperor's eyes were filled with coldness. Hualazi also swaggered away in front of him. There was nothing he could do. East Immortal, Nanru, West Demon and the others were still alive. The demon god is about to recover. When the time comes, we'll deal with him together. We don't need this little bit of time. When the time comes, it will be the time of their deaths. The great demon emperor said in a deep voice. His voice reverberated in the empty hall. Stone City, deep within the imperial palace. The grave where Du Xiaofu had been buried was now glowing with dazzling multicolored light and fluctuating energy. The immortal grass and dark seeker grass were growing luxuriantly, covering the high walls and nourishing the entire stone city. Inside the nether seeker grass, Kuang Zun, 9 lives venerable, and venerable Qian Xing sat cross-legged. Their bodies were wrapped in the nether seeker grass, and waves of invisible energy rippled around them. Walala. Strands of black demonic chi flowed out from their bodies and gradually dissipated around the netherseeker grass. The netherseeker grass could cleanse the spirit altar and suppress all evil. It was a treasure among treasures. Its value to cultivators was immeasurable. Du Xiaofu had placed Kuang Zun and 9 lives venerable here so that the netherseeker grass could suppress and cleanse the demonic chi in their bodies. The demonic chi had affected their primordial spirits. Back in the Demon King's palace, Du Xiaofu had only suppressed it, but not eradicated it. Once the demonic chi affected the primordial spirits, it was too difficult to eradicate it. Even with Du Xiaofu's current strength, he didn't dare to say that he had 100% confidence in eradicating it, let alone others. BZZT, BZZT. Du Xiaofu formed a hand seal, and a silver gold arc of lightning shot out from his forehead and entered Kuang Zun's forehead. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was being very careful, not daring to be careless. The netherseeker grass alone wasn't enough to cleanse the 3 uncle masters. Spirit lightning was the bane of demonic chi, and the Netherseeker grass might not be enough to completely eradicate the demonic chi in his three Uncle Masters' primordial spirits. It would take a long time, but with the various types of spirit lightning in his body, he should be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. However, this concerned the primordial spirits, and any mistake could lead to serious consequences. Thus, Du Xiaofu carefully controlled the spirit lightning in his primordial spirit to enter Kuang Zun's primordial spirit. Inside Kuang Zun's Naiwan palace, his primordial spirit was like a shrunken figure, covered in demonic qi. Although some of the demonic qi was being cleansed by the Netherseeker grass, the speed was too slow. It was still unknown if it could be eradicated completely. As Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit entered, Kuang Zun's eyes turned red, and he became even more ferocious as he pounced on Du Xiaofu. Boom! Du Xiaofu was already prepared, and the spirit lightning in his primordial spirit turned into a cage, trapping Kuang Zun's primordial spirit in all directions. It seemed simple, but it was actually very difficult. If the force was too strong, it could easily injure Kuang Zun's primordial spirit. If it was light, it could affect Kuang Zun's future cultivation. Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit was strong enough, and he carefully suppressed Kuang Zun's primordial spirit. The silver-gold arc of lightning flickered, and a strand of spirit lightning wrapped around Kuang Zun's primordial spirit. Bzzz. In an instant, the demonic qi turned into a mist, and a strange sound could be heard. The black talisman was destroyed, and the demonic qi was destroyed. Seeing this, Du Xiaofu relaxed a little, but he didn't dare to be careless and continued. After 2 hours, Kuang Zun's primordial spirit returned to normal, and there was no more demonic qi. His primordial spirit was crystal clear, and his primordial spirit's eyes were clear again. Phew! About 4 hours later, Du Xiaofu withdrew his hand seals and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. His face was slightly pale, but there was a smile on his face. Finally, the demonic aura in the soul of 7th Martial Uncle, Venerable Qianxing, was also cleared. Bzzz. Kuang Zun, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes, and his eyes were like stars. Old 7. Kuang Zun, who had cleared the demonic qi, and Kuang Zun, who was waiting by the side, were overjoyed. Child, it's been hard on you. Kuang Zun stood up and said. He knew what had happened in the Demon King Palace. Its disciple who has made the 3 martial uncles suffer. Du Xiaofu was slightly gratified that the devil qi in his 3 martial uncles' primordial spirits had been completely removed by the effects of the dark penetrating grass and the spirit thunder. What was even more unexpected to Du Xiaofu was that his 3 martial uncles' primordial spirits had strangely improved a lot over the years in the hands of the devil cult. They had all reached the domain realm. Du Xiaofu guessed that all of this was related to the demonic qi. When they were in the Demon King Palace, they were affected by the demonic qi, and their combined strength was even stronger. A moment later, Kuang Zun, and Kuang Zun met in the main hall. They couldn't help but be surprised and excited. After so many years, they never thought that they would meet again. Fourth brother, you've taken in a good disciple. The 7-star hall will prosper as long as the fire is not extinguished. Kuang Zun was happy. Everyone was finally reunited. Over the years, the 7-star hall had risen again. Dongli Diao, Lin Weiqi, and the others of the younger generation had also made amazing progress. All of this was inseparable from the support of the desolate country. If third brother was still here, he would be very happy to see this, Kuang Zun said. Hearing this, everyone fell into sadness. How tragic was it when Kuang Zun self-detonated. Master, martial uncles, the divine light court no longer exists. The devil religion will pay the price for third martial uncle's revenge one day, Du Xiaofu said. When third martial uncle self-detonated, fifth martial uncle desperately used his spatial martial vein to send him and little Xingxing away. Countless disciples of the 7-star hall died. The tragic scene was still vivid in their minds. Child, it's been hard on you all these years. Xiao Fenglei patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder. a gratified smile on his face. Chapter 2244. Supporting the 7-star hall, the desolate country, Tianwu Academy, and so on was all done by Du Xiaofu alone. How could Xiahou Fenglei not know how tiring it was to place so many burdens on the shoulders of someone who was still young? Xiahou Fenglei was gratified. His disciple had done it, shouldering all the burdens by himself. The desolate country, 7-star hall, Tianwu Academy, and so on had become more and more prosperous over the years. If it had been him, it would have been difficult for him to do so. We are old and behind the times. It is the world of the young now. Quang Zun spoke with a smile and gratification in his eyes. It won't be long. Martial Uncle and Martial Uncle will definitely be able to step into a higher realm. The 7-star hall still needs Martial Uncle and Martial Uncle to oversee it. Du Xiaofu smiled. Although it was impossible for third Martial Uncle, Alchemy Venerable, to be revived, seeing that his martial uncles and Martial Uncle had been reunited made him very happy. The second worry in his heart had been resolved. After chatting with his martial uncles and Martial Uncle for a while, Du Xiaofu left first. He returned to the backyard and chatted with his mother for a while longer. Mother wants to go into seclusion for a while, Han Aodong said. Although the desolate country seemed to be at the peak of its power, and had countless experts, Han Aodong knew very well that the desolate country was actually surrounded by danger and powerful enemies. If she did not step into the Saint Realm, she would not be able to help at all. For example, when the 9 demon emperors of the devil religion attacked, she went to the demon emperor's palace to rescue Venerable Weapon. She really wanted to be able to advance and retreat together. Okay. Du Xiaofu nodded. The great calamity was coming and his mother wanted to go into seclusion. Du Xiaofu naturally had no objections. Before the great calamity, the stronger one was, the more likely one would be able to protect oneself. Then, Du Xiaofu thought of something and said to his mother, Mother, I have a cultivation method here that can increase the power of the soul. It might be helpful to your cultivation. Du Xiaofu knew that his mother was a spiritual talisman master, and the spiritual root of legalism was also extremely mysterious and powerful. The mysterious incomplete cultivation method that he cultivated was extremely beneficial to the power of the primordial spirit. His elder brother, Jinqin had also cultivated it, and the results were astonishing. It was only after all these years that he was able to make successive breakthroughs. Therefore, Du Xiaofu wanted his mother to cultivate it as well. When Han Aodong heard this, she nodded slightly and did not refuse. There was no need to be polite with her son. However, when Du Xiaofu handed the mysterious technique to Han Aodong on the spot, Han Aodong's face was full of shock. Too extraordinary, too extraordinary. I'm going to go into seclusion right now. Han Aodong was shocked. With her knowledge and experience, how could she not know the benefits of this technique? She was overjoyed and immediately wanted to go into seclusion. Du Xiaofu smiled helplessly. He could only arrange for his mother to go into seclusion immediately. At night, the sky was dark blue. It was as if it had been washed by clear water, clean, gentle, and solemn. There were no clouds tonight. The moon was dark and the stars were bright. In the clear blue sky, the twinkling stars were like endless blue satin that was sprinkled with countless small jade flowers. The night was cold. In the courtyard of the Du family, the stars were gently floating. Du Tingshuan's figure was tall and straight. He looked into the depths of the night sky and his eyes narrowed slightly. He sighed softly and said, What a peaceful night. However, I'm afraid the world's peace will not last for long. At least, the desolate nation will persevere until the end. Du Xiaofu's figure stepped forward and stood beside Du Tingxian. The father and son were already at the same height. What do you plan to do next? I'm afraid there's not much time left. The ancestors of the Du family had a lot to do with that catastrophe. When the time comes, the devil religion's first target will be the Du family. Du Tingxian looked back and turned around. There's not much time left. Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed. Indeed, there was not much time left. Although he had stepped into the saint realm, compared to the devil religion, he was still too far away. The 9 great families, dragons, and phoenixes all have their own separate realms. It is said that the 9 great families, dragons, and phoenixes may be able to survive alone. Du Tingxian was worried. If the catastrophe came, the Du family would be the first to bear the brunt. There would be no way out. After being delayed for so long, there are some things that must be done. Du Xiaofu smiled and said to Du Tingxian, "The Du family is not without a way out. Compared to the realms of the 9 great families, the Du family is not inferior." Swoosh, swoosh. A moment later, several figures took advantage of the moonlight and flew towards the Chenhuang mainland. The next day at dusk, the Chenhuang mainland. Rumble. Under the setting sun, the sky was covered with rays of light. Suddenly, the Chenhuang mainland trembled in shock. It was as if the heavens and earth were crying. Rumble. Suddenly, in the depths of the Chenhuang mainland, there was a dazzling light. There was a vast aura like wind and thunder. A surging aura that seemed to cross the ancient time and space spread out. At this moment, all the living beings in the Chenhuang mainland were alarmed. They looked towards the sky. There was a burst of light, like a blooming lotus. From high up in the sky, there were rays of light pouring down from the 9 heavens. The sound of wind and thunder was unceasing. Walala! Dazzling runes covered the sky. It was so dazzling that it was like a dream. It fell down on the earth and filled the air with an ancient aura. It was like the beginning of the chaos. It was misty. In the sky where the rays of light were the most dazzling, Du Xiaofu stood in the air. He formed a seal with his hands and closed his eyes. At this moment, a vast space appeared in Du Xiaofu's mind. It was as if their minds were connected. With a thought, he could see every corner of this vast space. The vast land, various dangerous places, and numerous demonic beasts. This was the space of the divine dominion. Du Xiaofu came to the Chenhuang mainland to completely control the space of the divine dominion. Back when the space of the divine dominion underwent endless nirvana, Du Xiaofu saw an afterimage of the master of the 3,000 worlds and obtained 3 treasures. The third was the space of the divine dominion. However, one needed to step into the saint plane to be able to control it. Now, Du Xiaofu had stepped into the saint plane. He was here for the space of the divine dominion. The 9 great families all had their own space and had a strong foundation. Du Xiaofu had always been thinking about the space of the divine dominion. With the space of the divine dominion, when the calamity came, the desolate country would have a way out. Especially everything in the space of the divine dominion. It was the best place for all the young people to train. When the calamity came, the stronger they were, the more chances they would have to protect themselves. Du Xiaofu wanted to send the elites of the Du family and the desolate country into the space of the divine dominion to train. Du Xiaofu had already obtained the space of the divine dominion. It was not difficult for him to open it now. Du Xiaofu's mind was connected. He could peek into the entire space of the divine dominion. At this moment, it was as if the space was injected into his mind. He could peek into the surroundings with his mind and control it at the same time. The space of the divine dominion. This is the space of the divine dominion. At this moment, the old monster of the Green Fox tribe, who had come with Du Xiaofu, was shocked. He had seen Du Xiaofu open the space of the divine dominion with his own eyes. How could he not be shocked? He had also secretly entered the space of the divine dominion. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, Du Xiaojing, and Du Tingxian were all stunned at this moment. At this moment, Du Tingxian understood what Du Xiaofu meant. It turned out that he was referring to the space of the divine dominion. If the space of the divine dominion was the escape route of the Du family, it was indeed no less powerful than the space of the 9 great families. Qi! After a while, Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. There was joy in the depths of his eyes, but he was also frowning slightly. At this moment, after gaining control of the space of the divine dominion, Du Xiaofu found that although the space of the divine dominion was under his control, some things were gone. For example, the life-saving talisman and the suppression of the cultivation level that was supposed to automatically enter the domain realm had disappeared. However, there was a good side. Originally, only the most talented creatures could enter the space of the divine dominion. Now, there were no restrictions. As long as Du Xiaofu agreed, all creatures could enter the space of the divine dominion. Father, how can you open the space of the divine dominion? Little Xingxing stepped forward. Her black eyes were full of shock at this moment. The space of the divine dominion was jointly set up by her father, the dragon god, and the lords of the 3,000 sectors. I can already control the space of the divine dominion. Du Xiaofu smiled. Then, he explained the general situation to Du Tingxian, Little Xingxing, and the others. The lords of the 3,000 sectors had already given the space of the divine dominion to him. Back then, the lords of the 3,000 sectors and the dragon god set up the space of the divine dominion to train the descendants of this world, hoping to find an outstanding supreme being. Cuckoo! The old monster of the green fox swallowed his saliva. He really could not think of any other amazing thing that the demon king could take out. The space of the divine dominion was actually under his control. If this news spread, the eyes of the 9 great families, the dragons, and the phoenixes would be filled with blood. The space of the divine dominion is a little different from before. I need to think about how to set it up. I'm afraid it will take some time. I'm afraid that everyone will have to go back to guard the barren country first. Du Xiaofu said to Du Tingxian and the others. Originally, he brought everyone here because he was afraid that if he could not control the space of the divine dominion, they could think of a way. However, some things in the space of the divine dominion were now gone. After thinking about it secretly, Du Xiaofu wanted to make some arrangements. Now that the barren country really needed experts to guard it, Du Xiaofu did not dare to be careless. Then be careful, Du Tingxian reminded Du Xiaofu. Don't worry. I can protect myself in the space of the divine dominion. Du Xiaofu smiled. He knew that his drunkard father was worried about the experts of legalism and the devil religion. However, this was the space of the divine dominion. He was in control of everything. Du Xiaofu did not believe in legalism. The experts of the devil religion could casually enter the space of the divine dominion created by the overlords of the 3,000 boundless worlds and the dragon god unless the devil god himself came. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Du Tingxian was relieved. Soon after, everyone left. The barren country needed experts to guard it. Du Xiaofu entered the space of the divine dominion. The dazzling light in the void also disappeared, as if nothing had happened. This was the entrance to the space of the divine dominion. The space of the divine dominion was located in the Qinhuang mainland. Du Xiaofu could control the space of the divine dominion, but he could not move it to the barren country. After the demon king, Du Xiaofu caused a ruckus in legalism and forced his way into the demon king's palace and shook the 3 continents of Kyushu. The world calmed down again. There were no big waves, and the 9 great families did not make any moves. However, everyone knew in their hearts that this was only the beginning of a storm. Chapter 2245. Time passed by slowly, like quicksand at one's fingertips. The desolate country had also regained its peace. The Snow Spirit Battle Emperor, Qiu Qingrong, had returned to the Great Snow Mountain. All the other experts had also entered seclusion, striving to advance further as soon as possible. With the desolate nation's rich resources and the recovery of the world's energy, the disciples of the desolate nation were able to achieve twice the results with half the effort. Their progress was astonishing. Some experts broke through one after another, advancing further. Yi Piaoling, Mo Tianshao Stone, Mu Ruobai, Gui Che, Silver-Winged Demon Condor, Phantom, Bloodvine Evil Spirit, and the other top experts of the Barren Nation were improving rapidly with the best resources of the Barren Nation. Half a month later, in the stone city of the Barren Country. Boom! A thunderous rumble came from the void as lightning shot into the sky from the stone city. Large amounts of dazzling lightning arcs appeared in the sky, shaking all directions. The entire central state was trembling. Whoosh whoosh! The citizens of the stone city rushed to the streets, trembling under the vast aura. Countless eyes looked towards the depths of the palace, where the vast aura was coming from. Among the various forces of the central state, there were old figures floating in the air. They looked in the direction of the desolate country, and their eyes were filled with emotions. I wonder who in the desolate nation has stepped into the Saint Realm. On top of the ancient heaven sect, the Golden Rock Domain Lord, Sima Taxing, and the others looked in the direction of the barren nation. Their eyes were filled with shock. Such vast fluctuations and aura swept through the central state. It was a sign that a mighty one had stepped into the Saint Plane. Saint Realm! Our desolate country has another Saint Realm expert. Everyone in the Stone City's royal palace was pleasantly surprised, as the barren nation had gained yet another Saint Plane expert. In the depths of the imperial palace, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The lightning runes were dazzling. As the dazzling lightning receded, Elderlay's figure appeared. His eyes were bright as if they contained a sea of lightning, and his vast aura was endless. 10 days later, the energy of heaven and earth engulfed the heavens above the Great Wheel Sect, shaking the entire central state. She should have taken that step as well. Stone City Palace, Old Lei, Du Ting Xian, Little Xingxing and the others were looking in the direction of the Great Lun Sect. The one who had the highest chance of entering the Saint Realm was the old lady. In the following days, aura surged into the heavens above Kyushu from time to time, shaking the entire continent. Some of the old men at the peak of the Domain Realm, who were at the peak of the Domain Realm and had almost reached the end of their lifespan, were able to make breakthroughs and step into the Saint Realm with the help of the recovery of the energy of heaven and earth. Oh, at night the roars of beasts could be heard from the savage Beast Mountain Range. The current barbaric Beast Mountain Range was no longer the same as before. There were many powerful demonic beasts there. The moon was dim and the stars were bright. The distant mountains and nearby trees were all hazy, as if they were covered with a veil. An ethereal mist rose from the palace, and there were fluctuations of talismans and mysterious patterns. This was a treasure trove. Rumble! Suddenly, the heavens and earth rumbled and trembled. It was like endless thunder. Such a commotion was much greater than when he broke through to the Saint Realm. It shook the entire Kyushu region. In an instant, old figures from the various major forces appeared in the void. They moved their fingers and deduced the phenomenon. Could it be that place is about to reappear? Above the void, an old man's eyes were filled with shock. The barren nation, Stone City, Imperial Palace. Many figures stepped into the void. Their auras were vast for no reason, distorting the void. That ominous place is about to reappear in the world. High up in the sky, there were red and blue flames and electric arcs fluctuating. Hualezi looked into the depths of the void, and there were ripples in his eyes. At night, the dim moonlight shrouded the steep mountain walls. Among the lush trees, a few buildings were simple and deep, revealing the vicissitudes of life. In a secret chamber, Ouyang Shuang sat cross-legged. Her body was enveloped in a light screen, and a vast aura slowly fluctuated from her body. Suddenly, following the huge commotion, the large eyes on Ouyang Shuang's peerless face suddenly opened. A soft cry came from her mouth, and her brows were tightly furrowed. She seemed to be in extreme pain and discomfort. Goo goo! Ouyang Shuang's lower abdomen glowed as if something was wriggling. At this moment, somewhere in the Divine Dominion, the void was hazy. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. Around his body, there was a bright lightning flame that wrapped around him like a barrier. From between his eyebrows, pure energy of the origin spirit and spiritual lightning slowly drifted out. This lasted for an unknown amount of time. Finally, a silver-gold electric arc fluctuated between Du Xiaofu's brows, who was like an old monk in meditation. The resplendent lightning flames in the surroundings seemed to transform into a tiny stream of light that drilled into the space between his brows. Boom! Du Xiaofu's body immediately trembled after the last wisp of lightning flame entered between his eyebrows. A glaring lightning glow surged out from within his body. An invisible ripple that shook the empty space swept out from his body in all directions like a hurricane. Rumble! Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder rumbled in the void. Lightning runes shone brightly, and wild lightning covered the entire space. Electric arcs wreaked havoc like various spiritual snakes, and the mighty thunder rumbled incessantly. Walala! At the same time, a vast and shocking origin spirit energy swept out like a storm with Du Xiaofu as the center. At this moment, if there were any experts present, they would be dumbfounded. How could the origin spirit energy of an initial stage Saint Realm cultivator be so powerful? Just this origin spirit energy alone was enough to contend with an intermediate stage Saint Realm cultivator. After a while, the shocking commotion slowly subsided, and everything returned to normal. Chi! Du Xiaofu opened his eyes, and there was a flash of lightning in his eyes. The light shot out like lightning, and it took a while for it to recede. Huff! Du Xiaofu exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. The air shook the surroundings, and his robes fluttered. During this period of time in the Divine Dominion, Du Xiaofu had not stopped at all. He had rearranged many secret places in the Divine Dominion. After all, these places would be the training grounds for the Barren State's disciples in the future. In particular, Du Xiaofu placed even more emphasis on the original location of the Supreme Tomb, restoring it to its original appearance when he entered the Divine Domain. The resources were limited, and only the most talented disciples could enter. They couldn't afford to waste too much resources. There were also some places with great opportunities. Du Xiaofu had set up life-saving talismans and cultivation restrictions. The disciples who entered could have a domain realm cultivation and could have life-saving talismans to protect themselves. However, the experts who entered would also be suppressed to the domain realm. As for the boundless nirvana ground that he had comprehended, Du Xiaofu could not restore it, and it no longer existed. He could not help but feel a little regretful. It took Du Xiaofu a lot of effort to set up the Divine Dominion. He had also invested a lot of resources and foundation. The good things on him were almost used up, and he was exhausted several times. Then, Du Xiaofu refined the 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed in his mind. The 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed originally belonged to his master, the weapon master Xiahou Fenglei. Now that his master had no use for it, Du Xiaofu did not refuse anymore. The spiritual Thunder Soul Seed was indeed what Du Xiaofu needed the most. The 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed had been in Du Xiaofu's mind, and it had long been familiar with Du Xiaofu's aura. Moreover, the soul seed of the 3,000 repelling thunders was not too powerful for Du Xiaofu at the moment. Hence, it was easy for him to fuse them together without any obstacles. However, because the 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed was not too powerful, the integration with Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit brought great benefits to Du Xiaofu. However, the linear improvement of his cultivation and the immediate enhancement of his primordial spirit was not great at the moment. However, Du Xiaofu knew very well that the benefits of integrating the 3,000 Thunder Soul Seed were not comparable to the linear improvement of his cultivation. Du Xiaofu had just broken through to the Sage Realm. During this period of time, he felt that his cultivation had not improved much after stepping into the initial stage of the Sage Realm. The gap between each level of the Sage Realm was greater than the gap between the beginning of cultivation and the Sage Realm. It would be more difficult to go further. It's time to look for other spiritual thunders, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. He had done everything he could. The most important thing now was to enhance his own strength. For Du Xiaofu, the fastest way to enhance his strength and the most urgent thing was to integrate other spiritual thunders. It seemed that he would need the help of Huolei Laozu. Qi! After a while, Du Xiaofu's figure disappeared and left the Divine Dominion. He wanted to return to the Stone City to arrange everything and then look for Huolei Laozu to look for other spiritual thunders. When Du Xiaofu returned to the Stone City, he received two shocking news. Old Lei had stepped into the Sage Realm, which made Du Xiaofu very happy. The ancient wilderness fearsome ground is about to open again. In the main hall, Huolei Zi looked at Du Xiaofu and said with an extremely serious expression, "Ancient wilderness fearsome ground? What kind of place is that?" Looking at Huolei Laozu's expression and the ancient wilderness fearsome ground, Du Xiaofu's heart tightened. This place was probably not an ordinary place. Let's put it this way. The ancient wilderness fearsome ground is extremely ancient. It is the place where the dragons, phoenixes, and Kirans fought their final battle during the Dragon-Phoenix Tribulation, Huolei Laozi said. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's heart trembled. At this moment, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaojing, Little Xingxing, Old Monster Green Fox, and the others who were present also changed their expressions. Du Xiaofu knew about the Dragon-Phoenix Tribulation, and he had known about it since he was young. When he was young, Du Xiaofu thought that the Dragon-Phoenix Tribulation was just a legend. Later, he found out that it was something that happened before ancient times. Legend had it that there were 3 races at the beginning of the world. There were the dragons, the phoenixes, and the legendary Kirans. These 3 races were blessed by nature and were born with great power. Later on, for some unknown reason, the war between the 3 races was earth-shattering. The impact was too great, so it was called the Dragon-Phoenix Tribulation. At that time, humans were still struggling to survive in the cracks of all kinds of powerful creatures. They were extremely weak. Is there really a Dragon-Phoenix Tribulation? Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. Indeed, Old Lazy said. Although he had not cultivated as long as Huolei Zi, he knew many secrets. He said to Du Xiaofu, "It is said that the Dragon-Phoenix Tribulation ended with the extinction of the Kirans. The dragons and phoenixes also suffered heavy losses and retreated to the 4 seas and Wutong Mountain to recuperate." Chapter 2246. Dragons are revered by the scale beasts, Qilins are revered by the beasts on the ground, and phoenixes are revered by the birds. However, after the dragons and phoenixes joined forces to destroy the Qilins during the great calamity of the Dragon and Phoenix Calamity, they also suffered great losses. From then on, the strength of the dragons and phoenixes greatly decreased, and the other races took advantage of the situation to flourish. Among them, the human race completely rose to prominence. Elder Lei spoke, revealing everything he knew. As for the location of the final battle of the great calamity of the Dragon and Phoenix Calamity, no one knows how it became the ancient wilderness ominous ground. That ancient wilderness ominous ground has only appeared twice since ancient times, and both times were before the great calamity of the primordial era. My old master had once entered it. It was said that he was searching for an extremely important item, but in the end, he returned without success. Later on, he said that the ominous ground was extremely dangerous and had great killing intent. It was extremely dangerous, Elder Lei continued. His old master, Jinlei Tensei, had also entered it. However, his cultivation was still shallow at that time, so he didn't have the opportunity to enter. Hearing Elder Lei's words, Du Xiaofu's heart couldn't help but tighten. Even an expert like Jinlei Tensei had said that the ancient wilderness ominous ground was extremely dangerous. It was enough to show just how dangerous that place was. Strictly speaking, those 2 ancient wilderness ominous grounds didn't truly appear at all. It was only because cracks appeared for some reason that people could enter. Moreover, those who could enter were all cultivators of the Saint Realm and above. Those below the Saint Realm didn't have the right to enter at all. Huolei corrected Elder Lei and said, although only cracks appeared in those 2 ancient wilderness ominous grounds, many powerful experts had entered and died inside. There were also people who had obtained great opportunities, such as the blood essence of dragons and phoenixes, as well as the supreme beast energy of dragons and phoenixes. There were also some treasures left behind by the ancestors of heaven-defying races from ancient times. Those races weren't much weaker than the dragons and phoenixes back then. With that, Huolei glanced at Du Xiaofu, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others. There was some pride and complacency on his face. He had entered the danger zone before, so he knew much more than Old Man Lei. Huolei Zi, have you entered the ancient desolate fearsome ground before? Little Xingxing looked at Huolei Zi and asked curiously. Impudent. Master Fire Lightning stared at Little Star and rolled his eyes. However, he didn't look angry as he replied, Of course I've been there. I'm afraid there aren't many people who are still alive after going to the ominous grounds. Then if you bring us in, there won't be any danger soon, right? Little Xingxing blinked her bright eyes. The mark between her eyebrows was noble and charming. She wasn't polite to Hualezi. Hualezi's status was very high, but little Xingxing knew that she was the daughter of the dragon god. In terms of status, she was much higher than Hualezi. Little guy, you're thinking too much? If we look at the situation of the first crack and the second crack, those who have entered the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground can't enter a second time. No matter if it's a human, a beast, or a demon spirit, no matter how high their cultivation is, they can only enter once. Hualezi looked at Lil Xingxing, Du Xiaofu, and the others and shook his head. He probably wouldn't have the chance to enter the danger zone a second time. Is that so? Hearing this, the old monster of the Green Fox tribe looked a little disappointed. He didn't have the chance to enter the ancient, desolate, ominous place. Just now, when he heard little Xingxing's words, he thought that it would be much safer if the Fire Thunder ancestor could take them into that ominous place. Did those old guys from the Eternal Tomb enter the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground before? Little Xingxing's eyes rolled as she looked at Hualezi and asked. Of course they did, Hualezi said. He looked at little Xingxing in confusion. He didn't know why little Xingxing asked this question. He. Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and Du Xiaofu looked at each other tacitly after hearing Hualezi's words. Then, they looked at each other and laughed. That's good. At least we can take care of those bastards. Little Xingxing smiled maliciously. If those old guys from the Eternal Tomb couldn't enter the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground, they wouldn't have to worry about the dragons, legalism, school of vertical and horizontal, and famous scholars. They would have a chance to take care of the dragons, legalism, and others. Du Xiaofu also smiled maliciously. If those people from the Eternal Tomb couldn't enter the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground, at least they wouldn't have to worry about the dragons, famous scholars, and school of vertical and horizontal behind their backs. With little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others' cultivation and strength, they might be able to take advantage of the situation. Hearing little Xingxing's words and looking at Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoyao, and little Xingxing's treacherous smiles, the old monster Green Fox, Senior Lei, and the others finally understood. They were secretly stunned. Sure enough, people of different families would not enter the same house. Hualezi rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu, little Xingxing, and Du Xiaoyao helplessly and continued. Judging from the commotion this time, I'm afraid that the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground won't have a crack this time. It will truly reappear in the world. At that time, there will be more opportunities. Any one of them will be extraordinary. Ancestor, where is the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground? Du Xiaofu asked. It's on the ancient, desolate continent, Hualezi said. Du Xiaofu was no stranger to the ancient, desolate continent. The three continents were Kyushu, the Demon Realm, and the Beast region. The three continents were the Tianhuang continent, the Chenhuang continent, and the ancient, desolate continent. Among them, the Divine region was in the Chenhuang continent. Du Xiaofu had been to the Tianhuang continent before. Jin Lei Tensei's mansion had appeared on the Tianhuang continent. The ancient, desolate continent. Du Xiaofu remembered something. Du Xiaoqing had said that the mark in her beast soul had been activated. She wanted to search for everything related to her origin. That place was on the ancient, desolate continent. Du Xiaofu was clear about Du Xiaoqing's origin. She came out of the huge headless demonic beast skeleton and came out of the oval egg. However, Du Xiaofu had never asked whether Du Xiaoqing had found out about her origin. Now that the ancient, desolate continent was mentioned, Du Xiaofu remembered. Later, Du Xiaofu learned from Hualezi that the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground hadn't completely reappeared yet, but it would definitely open soon. However, only a crack had appeared on the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground, so only experts of the Saint Realm could enter. This time, the ancient, desolate, fearsome ground should completely reappear in the world. He didn't know if cultivators below the Saint Realm could enter. Chapter 2247. If anyone below the Saint Realm goes in, they'll just be courting death. It's too dangerous, Hualezi said. The opportunities inside were huge, but the danger was too great. I have to go in. Du Xiaofu had already decided that there were great dangers in there, but there were also great opportunities. The blood essence of the true dragon and true phoenix, the supreme beast energy of the true dragon and true phoenix, were all heaven-defying treasures. There were also some treasures left behind by the ancestors of some extremely heaven-defying races from ancient times. Those races were not much inferior to the dragon and phoenix races back then. Du Xiaofu couldn't refuse. It was time for him to increase his strength. He had to go to the ancient desolate ominous ground. He might have to postpone his search for spirit thunder. You have to be careful. Although those old guys can't enter the ancient desolate continent, it doesn't mean that no experts can. Maybe there are some hidden experts in this world. They didn't enter the ancient desolate ominous ground last time. This time, the ancient desolate ominous ground has completely reappeared. They won't miss this opportunity. Hualezi reminded Du Xiaofu, Little Xingxing, Du Xiaoyao, and the others. Ancestor, did those demon emperors of the devil religion enter the ancient desolate ominous ground? Du Xiaojing rarely spoke, but he couldn't help but worry. If those demon emperors of the devil religion could enter the ancient desolate ominous ground, the threat would be huge. I really don't know about this. You're the only one who's curious. I remember that when the ancient desolate ominous ground was torn open the second time, those demons of the devil religion had already appeared. However, I've never heard of any demons entering the ancient desolate ominous ground. Hualezi frowned. He was also curious about this, so he didn't know if those demon emperors could enter the ancient desolate ominous ground. Let's get ready to go. Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. His eyes were firm. Whether those demon emperors could enter the ancient desolate ominous ground or not, he had to go there. Maybe he could get some great opportunities. Not long after, Du Xiaofu found Du Xiaoqing. He wanted to know if Du Xiaoqing had found her family in the ancient desolate continent. No, we didn't gain anything. Our clan doesn't exist in the entire ancient desolate continent. Du Xiaoqing was a little sad. She did not gain anything from her previous trip to the ancient desolate fearsome grounds. However, the imprint in her beast spirit allowed her to feel that there were still people from her tribe living in the ancient desolate continent. Du Xiaofu stroked Du Xiaoqing's hair and patted her shoulder. Come with me to the ancient desolate continent. Maybe you will find something. Okay. Du Xiaoqing nodded happily. At night, Du Xiaofu found Mo Tianshao, Dong Fan Qingmu, Diumlong, Old Yi, Qiuli, Gui Che, Silver-winged demonic condor, Thunder Eagle King, Mianming King, and other core members of the desolate country. He told them about his control over the divine realm. What? When they heard this news, everyone was shocked and dumbfounded. They couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Their eyeballs were about to pop out of their sockets as they looked at Du Xiaofu like he was a monster. Saints will follow me to the ancient desolate fearsome grounds. The others will take the elites of the desolate country to train in the divine realm. Although there are great opportunities in the ancient desolate fearsome grounds, it is not easy for saints to come out. Those who are not strong enough should not enter. Du Xiaofu told everyone about his idea and the heaven-defying opportunities that might exist in the ancient desolate ominous ground. However, the ancient desolate ominous ground was too dangerous. Even Saint Realm cultivators would be in danger if they entered. He didn't want them to be in danger, so he brought Du Xiaoqing along to see if he could take the opportunity to find her family. The great calamity is coming. There is not much time left. Since there is such an opportunity, we should seize it. The dangers are unknown. I want to enter, Du Gefenchen said. His eyes were firm and filled with flames. Entering the divine realm was not very meaningful to him. He had already entered before. The opportunities in the ancient desolate fearsome grounds were the greatest temptation for him. As for the dangers, he had never backed down. Count me in! Yi Piaoling only said 4 simple words, but her eyes were shining. Count me in as well, Jin Chun said. Then, almost everyone wanted to enter the ancient desolate fearsome grounds. Many people had already entered the divine realm. Du Xiaofu frowned. The others were fine, but Du Gefenchen, Nether Demon, and Mo Tian Shao, Yi Piaoling, Dong Fang Qingmu, Jin Xin Chun, and the others' personalities made it impossible for them to refuse. In the end, Du Xiaofu could only nod. Not long after, Du Xiaofu brought big sister Du Xiaoman, second brother Du Yunlong, Qiuli, Mian Ming King, Thunderhawk King, Gui Che, Silver-Winged Demonic Condor, and the others to the Divine Realm. Du Xiaofu had rearranged the Divine Realm. He had to personally instruct everyone. Mian Ming King and Thunderhawk King were the kings of the Divine Realm. Naturally, they had to be there. Du Xiaofu also made some small arrangements for everyone to enter and exit the Divine Realm. As the news of the ancient desolate fearsome grounds opening spread, the entire Kyushu continent was shaken. Discussions were everywhere. Many people expressed their desire to enter the ancient desolate continent. They wanted to enter the ancient desolate fearsome grounds to seek great opportunities. Such a great temptation was enough to make people put the danger to the back of their minds. 2 days later, in the morning, the darkness before dawn had just passed, and the first ray of sunlight rose from the east. Above the stone city's imperial palace, more than a dozen figures stepped into the void. It was none other than Du Xiaofu's group. Other than Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaojing, Du Tingxian, Elder Lei, and other true saint experts, there was also Mo Tian Shao, Dong Fang Qingmu, Nether Demon, Yelu Han, Du Gefenchen, Jin Xin Chun, Yi Piaoling, Chan Guyu, Du Xiaoqing, and Little Tiger. What made Du Xiaofu feel helpless was that little girl Du Xiaohuang, Du Ba, and the others had heard the news from somewhere. They said that they wanted to go to the ancient desolate continent to seek opportunities. They also clamored about going. It wasn't easy to convince them to follow Thunderhawk King, Qiuli, and the others into the Divine Realm to temper themselves. "Let's go," Du Xiaofu said. The group tore through the void and headed straight for the ancient desolate continent. Around half an incense stick's time after Du Xiaofu's group had left, 2 small heads stealthily poked out from a certain corner of the palace. One of them was a young man who appeared to be in his early teens, while the other was an even younger girl. 2 pairs of large eyes stealthily rotated in all directions. Finally, they looked at each other and smiled. The girl opened her mouth and said, "Brother Du Ba, my father, elder sister Xiao Qing, elder sister Xingxing, and Aunt Xiaojing should have gone far away. Sister Huang, do you think Uncle Xiaofu will be angry if we secretly follow?" The little boy was a little worried. "What, are you afraid? There are great opportunities in the ancient desolate fearsome grounds." Du Xiaohuang glanced at the little boy. She was obviously encouraging him. Chapter 2248. Scared? When have I, Du Xiaoba, ever been scared? Although the young boy was young, his body was tall and muscular, giving off the feeling of a lion cub. He patted his chest as he spoke to the little girl. But then, his bright eyes turned, showing a hint of fear. He was not afraid of anyone, except for Uncle Xiaofu and his master from the Golden Rock clan. "If you're not scared, then come with me. We'll go secretly." "So what if it's the ancient wilderness ominous grounds?" the little girl said, and her figure rose into the air, tearing the space apart. Although the young boy was still a little hesitant, at this time, he could only bite the bullet and follow. The 2 youthful figures then disappeared into the void. The news of the ancient wilderness ominous grounds opening spread throughout the 3 continents and Kyushu, and all the cultivators were moved. In a short time, many experts from the 3 continents and Kyushu headed towards the ancient wilderness continent. With the speed of Du Xiaofu and the others, it did not take them long to reach the ancient wilderness continent. They did not need to go through the wormhole at all. Tearing the space apart was much faster than going through the wormhole. When Du Xiaofu arrived at the ancient wilderness continent, he could not help but feel a little surprised. There were already many people on the ancient wilderness continent, and he could even feel many hidden auras. Of course, with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation and strength, and the cultivation of the group, they did not feel any threat. "This is the ancient wilderness continent." Du Xiaoqing was a little sad. When the mark in her mind was activated, she could clearly feel that there might be relatives on the ancient wilderness continent. But the last time she came, she could not find them. There seems to be a lot of people here, but I don't see the 9 great families, dragons, and phoenixes. Little Xingxing relaxed his mind, and was a little surprised that he did not see the 9 great families. There are many powerful races on the ancient wilderness continent. You can't underestimate them, Du Shaoqing said to Little Xingxing. However, she knew Little Xingxing's current strength. Although there were many powerful races in the ancient desolate continent, none of them could compare with Little Xingxing. This is not the place where the ancient desolate fearsome grounds will open. Naturally, there are no members of the 9 great families, dragons, or phoenixes here. However, I don't think they will show up too early. There is no need for them to leave early. They don't want to send their younger generation members to their deaths. Master Hole glanced at everyone and said. Du Xiaofu smiled. He knew that Hole Laozu had followed them here to protect them. Since the ancient desolate ominous grounds was such a big event, the legalism and the school of vertical and horizontal would definitely appear. 2 hours later, a vast and boundless sea appeared before Du Xiaofu and the others. The sea was boundless, and the sky and water were the same color. Looking carefully, there were towering island peaks, cliffs, and verdant greenery. Stepping on the void and looking into the distance, one could see waves surging up and down. Each wave was higher than the previous one. It was extremely majestic. The vast sea seemed to be connected to the sky. In the distance, it was deep and misty. It was as if the sea and sky had merged into one. It's in front, Master Hole said. He withdrew his aura and landed on top of a canyon. There were greenery on both sides of the canyon, and a meandering river flowed through it. Everyone also withdrew their aura as they landed. Is that where the ancient desolate ominous grounds will open? Du Xiaofu squinted his eyes. Above the vast sea, there was a spatial crack in the depths of the void. Those who were not strong enough would not be able to see through it. There was an ancient and boundless qi coming out from it. Amo Tian Xiao, Du Xiaojing, Du Tingxian, and the green fox old monster all looked up. That crack shows signs of completely shattering. The ancient desolate ominous grounds should be opening soon, Master Hole said. A faint scarlet-blue flame arc flickered in his eyes. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. Not long ago, he had broken into the Demon King Palace. It made him understand that even if he had stepped into the Saint Realm, he was still far from those demon emperors, let alone the demon god. Therefore, no matter what, if there were great opportunities in the ancient desolate ominous grounds, he must get them. The great calamity was coming. Those demon emperors and demon gods would probably recover completely. Du Xiaofu knew that he did not have time to wait at all. With his current cultivation, if he wanted to improve his cultivation by leaps and bounds in a short period of time, he could only look for spiritual thunder and various great opportunities. Only by increasing his strength could he have more power to resist the great calamity that was coming soon. At present, Du Xiaofu knew very well that he could not even deal with the 9 demon emperors, let alone the great demon emperor. What was more terrifying was that there was still the demon god. Even the dragon god and the master of the 3,000 great worlds could not completely kill him. In addition, Du Xiaofu did not think that the legalism would give up. There was also the school of vertical and horizontal, the dragons, and the others who had a deep hatred for each other. It was unlikely that they could resolve it. Du Xiaofu didn't think about resolving it either. With his current strength and cultivation, he was far from enough to face the people from the school of vertical and horizontal, the Dragon Clan, and the school of legalism who had come out of the eternal tomb. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's expression changed. With a thought, he waved his hand and a qianquan bag appeared in his hand. This was an ordinary qianquan bag. It appeared to be ancient, and it emitted an ancient and boundless aura. There was nothing special about it. However, at this moment, there was a glimmer of light flickering within it. However, it quickly disappeared. Du Xiaofu was sure that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. What surprised Du Xiaofu was that this Qianquan bag was the one that the great elder of Xiao Yu had given to him when Tianwu Academy was being massacred by the Divine Light Court. He said that the ancestors of the Academy had predicted that if Tianwu Academy were to face a great calamity one day, it would definitely be because of the items in this Qianquan bag. The items in this Qianquan bag were related to the rise of Tianwu Academy. The ancestors of the Academy had set up a seal on it, and only the fated people could open it. As for what was inside the Qianquan bag, no one knew. Du Xiaofu had kept this Qianquan bag in his hand all this time. He remembered the words of the great elder of Xiao Yu and could not let this Qianquan bag fall into the hands of anyone else. Holding the Qianquan bag in his hand, Du Xiaofu's soul probed into the Qianquan bag. However, he realized that even with the power of his soul, he still felt like a stone sinking into the ocean. He could not see what was inside the Qianquan bag. What is inside? Yes. Du Xiaofu withdrew the power of his soul and slowly exhaled from his abdomen. He had clearly sensed some fluctuations in the Qianquan bag, which had been motionless all this time. After a while, Du Xiaofu put away the Qianquan bag. It seemed that if he wanted to know what was inside the Qianquan bag, he would have to wait for an opportunity. There are quite a few people here, Little Star said. Although they had restrained their auras, there were still quite a few experts who had discovered them and were secretly peeping over. These auras naturally could not escape the detection of Little Star's soul. He discovered quite a few familiar auras. Du Xiaofu had long sensed that there were quite a few auras peeping over. When he heard Little Star's words, he probed with his soul. At this moment, there were indeed quite a few familiar auras in the surroundings of the vast sea. Among them, there were quite a few that were extremely powerful. Du Xiaofu's soul swept over and discovered quite a few familiar people. Xiang Wushuang, Xiang Zhangxing, and the others were among them. However, when the auras came into contact with Du Xiaofu's, Little Star's, and the others' auras immediately withdrew as if they had been electrocuted. They were afraid that they would provoke this group of people. Let's rest first, said Fire Lightning. He did not care about the experts around him, nor did he intend to pay attention to them. Then, everyone sat down cross-legged in the canyon and closed their eyes to rest. The ancient wilderness fearsome grounds were too dangerous. No one dared to be careless. They had to maintain their peak and be cautious at all times. There were constantly creatures coming over from all directions. However, with Little Tiger and Du Xiaoqing deliberately releasing some auras, it was enough to prevent anyone from approaching the canyon. However, there were exceptions. Soon after, Xiangu arrived. Although Du Xiaofu had already stepped into the Saint Realm, he still stood up to welcome Xiangu. He thanked Xiangu for his help. Gee! A few hours later, above the void, a blue flame spread out. A loud and clear cry spread out. The blue flame rose and spread across the sky like a small blue sun. A blue swan spread its wings and flew over. Its gorgeous tail feathers were covered with blue runes. It was lively and majestic, showing the aura of a supreme beast. Roar! Following the appearance of this blue swan, the demonic beasts in the distance and in the sea kept roaring and trembling. On the back of the blue swan, a graceful figure stood. Her eyes were clear and pure. It was so pure that it made people feel as if they did not eat the food of mortals. She was like a wisp of smoke, graceful and graceful. She was so beautiful that she could topple cities. She was so beautiful that she stunned the world. The disturbance caused Du Xiaofu to open his eyes as well. He looked at the azure phoenix and the beauty in the sky as a smile rose from the corner of his mouth. It's Xingyu. Du Xiaoqing was surprised and shouted at the void. Xingyu, we're here! It's little Qing and brother Xiaofu. When the beautiful woman heard this, she looked down at the figure above the canyon. Her beautiful face was instantly filled with a smile. Her smile was so beautiful that it could topple cities. She could no longer wait and directly rushed down. Then the blue swan's huge body flickered and turned into a girl in blue. Her long eyelashes were slightly curled and she had a mysterious and supreme temperament. At dusk, another beautiful woman arrived. Her appearance was peerless. Her long and slender legs were wrapped in tight clothes. Her curves were alluring and outlined a devilish figure. When such a woman appeared, Du Xiaofu immediately went to greet her. The ancient desolate fearsome ground seems to be completely open. Master asked me to go in. After a while, after everyone exchanged greetings, Ouyang Shuang said to Du Xiaofu, "What are the herbs to take note of in the ancient desolate fearsome ground? Did Senior Beiqi say anything?" Du Xiaofu asked Ouyang Shuang. Du Xiaofu reckoned that an expert like Crazy Beiqi might know more about the ancient desolate fearsome ground than Hole Laozu. Chapter 2249. Ouyang Shuang shook her head and said to Du Xiaofu, "Even my master has never entered the ancient desolate ominous grounds. Even Senior Beiqi has never entered it." Du Xiaofu was a bit surprised. From master's tone, it seems that master, Fui Bai, Nan Ru, Shi Yao, and other seniors are all unable to enter the ancient desolate ominous grounds. There seems to be some kind of restriction, Ouyang Shuang said to Du Xiaofu after some hesitation. This was just her guess from her master's tone, but she wasn't sure about the specifics. There's such a restriction. Du Xiaofu was even more surprised. There are many restrictions in the present world, but not many people know about them. This ancient desolate ominous grounds is even more mysterious. According to my guess, this place might have something to do with you. Master Huolei opened his mouth and looked at Du Xiaofu. He wanted to say something but stopped. His gaze flickered, and then he said, "Let's talk about it in the future. In short, the ancient desolate ominous grounds are very complicated." Du Xiaofu didn't ask any more questions. Night had already fallen. In the depths of the sea and the surrounding mountains, there were occasional low roars of monsters. "It's moving, as if it's being summoned. I can feel that it's related to the ancient desolate ominous grounds." Under the cover of the night and the moonlight, Ouyang Shuang nestled in Du Xiaofu's arms and stroked her slightly bulging belly. Ever since that mysterious yellow round stone entered her stomach, it gave her the feeling of nurturing a new life. It was also because of this mysterious stone that her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. "There's movement," Du Xiaofu focused. Ever since that mysterious yellow stone entered Ouyang Shuang's body last time, he had been worried. That stone was too mysterious, and he couldn't pry into it with his soul. No matter what he did, there was no reaction. He had even tried dripping blood on it to recognize it as its master. Du Xiaofu frowned. He had once tried to use force to split that yellow round stone, but found that it was harder than any other object. He couldn't damage it in the slightest. Even the 5-colored spiritual stove and talisman cauldron couldn't refine it. "It has no ill intentions towards me. I can feel it." Seeing Du Xiaofu's nervousness, Ouyang Shuang smiled faintly. All these years, the mysterious stone in her stomach had allowed her to feel that no matter what it was, it would not harm her. "I hope so." Du Xiaofu was also able to sense that the mysterious stone did not have any ill intentions, but he could only feel helpless and helpless. He was very clear that the mysterious yellow stone was filled with an ancient aura and was indestructible. This was enough to prove that it was definitely not an ordinary object. The Desolation Leopard had once said that the stone was obtained from an ancient land in the ancient desolate continent. When it appeared, it had caused a phenomenon in the surroundings, causing clouds to move, lightning to flash, and thunder to rumble. The stone came from the ancient desolate continent, but it seemed to be related to the ancient desolate ominous grounds. Du Xiaofu was puzzled. "Don't worry, I'll be fine." Ouyang Shuang looked up and raised her delicate hand slightly, caressing his resolute face. Her large eyes were filled with tenderness as she smiled faintly, a smile that could topple the world. Looking at the face in front of him, Du Xiaofu could no longer hold back. He lowered his head and kissed her gently. Her large eyes closed slightly, and she pouted slightly. Her red lips were alluring as they gently touched. Their lips touched, and they stopped after tasting briefly. Then they entangled, plundered, and passionately entangled. Under the moonlight, this man and woman enjoyed a rare tenderness. Swoosh swoosh, in the dark night, there were constantly outstanding cultivators descending around this sea region. The ancient desolate ominous grounds spread more and more, and some ancient sects and factions that had not shown themselves before began to appear. Such an ominous ground was also accompanied by a huge opportunity, enough to attract the attention of all the experts in the world. Usually, this place was desolate and uninhabited, but at this moment, it was extremely lively in the dark night. There were also some small disputes, but they quickly subsided. Time passed slowly, and soon, it was dawn. The dark gray clouds that had accumulated in the night gradually melted. From afar, the surface of the sea region seemed to be covered by a thin, translucent mist. The light in the morning was like the beginning of chaos, separating light and darkness. The sky that was covered by thick layers of clouds cracked open, and the sky was filled with red clouds. A moment later, the sea region was filled with golden waves, and the red sun was like a furnace of boiling lava. The golden light was dazzling, and the sky was filled with red light. On top of a giant rock in the canyon, Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. He raised his head and looked at the void above. In the depths of the sea region, a crack was slowly opening and quietly tearing open. At the same time, the surface of the sea region began to surge. Crazy waves surged, and terrifying waves were set off. At this moment, in front of everyone's shocked gazes, a huge crack appeared in the depths of the void, slowly revealing a vast ancient land. It was as if a part of the world was falling. "It's open!" Master Huolei stood up and looked at the void in front of him. His eyes were covered with red and blue flames. Rumble, the heaven and earth trembled, and the tides rose. The ancient desolate ominous grounds had finally opened. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sea and the sky were flipped upside down, and the islands and reefs trembled. The crack in the void expanded rapidly, as if it was opening the entrance to a new world. "It's the ominous grounds that has opened!" Many exclamations came from all directions. In the vast ancient land that looked like a new world, light shone. Runes were resplendent, and white mist was faintly discernible. It was like the energy of immortals, and there were bursts of sacrificial sounds. It was as if they had returned to an extremely ancient era. There were many ominous grounds chanting, and the divine sounds were deafening. Mysterious runes overflowed from the void endlessly. This kind of movement made people unable to hold themselves back. Many experts had already soared into the sky to fight for the great opportunities. Walala! At this moment, the entire world was filled with surging energy. The white mist fluctuated, and the divine sounds came from the heaven and earth. "There's movement again!" Du Xiaofu stood up, and the Qianquan pouch that the great elder gave him appeared in his hand. At this moment, mysterious runes flickered on the Qianquan pouch as if it was attracted by something, but it soon disappeared. "It's reacting again!" Just as Du Xiaofu was surprised, Ouyang Shuang, who was beside him, spoke. The mysterious yellow stone in her stomach was reacting again. It was squirming and glowing. "Old ancestor, there's a mysterious thing in her body. I wonder what it is," Du Xiaofu informed Huolei Laozu. Huolei raised his eyebrows, and a bright scarlet-blue flame arc wrapped around Ouyang Shuang. As the scarlet-blue flame arc wrapped around her, the mysterious stone in Ouyang Shuang's stomach suddenly calmed down. "Strange, I don't know what it is." After a while, Huolei Laozu frowned. He was puzzled. He didn't know what it was, and he couldn't expel it from Ouyang Shuang's body. "Looks like there's no other way." This was also within Du Xiaofu's expectations. Crazy Ol and the others didn't know what the mysterious stone was, and Huolei Laozu also didn't know. Chapter 2250. "Dad, when are we going in?" Little Xingxing asked Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu looked at the void in front of him. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly looked at the void to the side. Many figures appeared in the distant sky, and waves of invisible but terrifying auras spread out. The more powerful one was, the more one would be able to sense such a terrifying aura. Those who weren't strong enough couldn't even feel the existence of such auras. "They're here." Huolei looked at where Du Xiaofu was looking. Electric arcs appeared in his red-blue eyes. Thunder flames flickered. Those old guys from the eternal tomb. Do they also want to enter the ancient barren ominous ground? Little Xingxing frowned. The demonic mark between her eyebrows shone faintly. Those powerful auras in the distance couldn't escape her detection. They were the terrifying ancient cultivators from the eternal tomb. Even with her current cultivation, she was a bit afraid. She knew that those old guys weren't to be trifled with. Don't worry. They're just here to try. I've already tested it. They can't enter, Huolei said Master Huolei. He was a bit disappointed. He had already tried it with his mind, but there was still a limit to the fearsome land. Those who had entered it once couldn't enter it again. He had come here with the intention of testing it out, but he had already tested it, and there was still a limit to the fearsome land that prevented him from entering. Amitabha. As Huolei's voice fell, there was a Buddhist chant in the sky. The sound of Sanskrit was faintly discernible. Sutras were chanted. In the void, there were several figures in the sky. Their auras were powerful. The one in the front was an old monk. He didn't hide much of his Saint Plain aura. It's the old monk from the Buddhist school. There's also Ninefold Spirit and Hengluan. Yi Piaoling's pitch-black eyes were full of spirit. Those were the cultivators from the Buddhist school. She was no stranger to Ninefold Spirit and Hengluan. Back then, the 18 Celestial Guards had fought with them in a joint formation. It's not just the Buddhist school. They're all here, Du Xiao said. Her spiritual eyes shone with golden light. Whoosh, whoosh, as Du Xiaoyao's voice fell, a large number of figures appeared from the void above the sea region. Their light was dazzling. Their auras were vast, shaking the sky. Du Xiaofu saw many familiar figures. Taoist priest Qifeng, Su Yangzi, and several others. Meng Qianhe of Confucianism. And Jiang Yuechan of the School of Agriculture. Kong Sansi and Zhou Xiaoluo. Yu Su of the Demon Vulture clan, Shi Yu of the Heavenly Serpent clan, and Shi Hongtu of the Red Fire Demon Lion clan. These 3 familiar Saint Realm cultivators also appeared, each bringing a few people with them. Su Sanyan from the School of Vertical and Horizontal, and Hui Wu from the famous guild had also appeared. They had brought a few people with them. Of legalism to legalism, Yu Chuan Lu Yao to Tanilu to there to elder to him to was elder. Was Yi but the to legalism? Elder to elder was elder. To the was the elder were of elders few. Du Xiaojing's eyes rippled as he looked at Elder Ming and the unkempt middle-aged man. Miss Xiaojing. Elder Ming tore through the void and appeared. He immediately sensed the strongest auras among the group, Du Xiaofu and the others. Then, he bowed to Du Xiaojing from afar. The men and women behind Elder Ming looked at Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaojing, Du Tingxian, and the others from afar. They gritted their teeth and secretly revealed a chill. However, they did not dare to show it too obviously. Elder Ming. Du Xiaojing looked up and nodded. His face was calm. He nodded to the unkempt middle-aged man from afar. Du Xiaofu knew who he was. When he first entered legalism and lost his mind, it was Elder Ming and him who saved his life for a short period of time. Du Xiaofu had repaid Elder Ming's favor. However, he had not repaid his second uncle's favor. Du Xiaofu had heard from his mother that his second uncle had been helping him in legalism all these years. However, the gap between him and legalism was too great. Du Xiaofu was unable to call him second uncle. Du Xiaofu was secretly surprised when he felt Elder Ming's aura. However, he was not surprised. After the last time they fought, he did not expect Elder Ming to have stepped into the Saint Demon realm during this period of time. Humph! Beside Elder Ming and the unkempt middle-aged man, there was a young man who looked to be in his 30s. His face was a little pale, but his gaze was cold. He looked at Du Xiaofu, Du Tingxian, and the others from afar with cold hatred. He snorted coldly and then flew towards the ancient desolate ominous grounds. The unkempt middle-aged man looked at Du Xiaofu, Du Tingxian, Du Xiaojing, and the others under his messy hair. The corners of his mouth rose slightly, revealing a faint smile. Then, he followed Elder Ming behind the young man. Roar! A deafening dragon roar and a supreme beast aura descended. A figure with a vast aura descended. It was Long Qianchao of the Dragon's clan. He brought a few people with powerful auras. Hu Xuanhu of the Mo clan also appeared. He tore through space and brought Mo Runin, Sima Muhan, and a few others with him. Ku! Deafening cries rang out. The Phoenix clan's Saint Feng Qi also came. He brought Zixian, Huang Ling'er, Feng Han, Feng Chu, Feng Wu, and several others. It seems like everyone wants to take a gamble this time, Huolei said indifferently as he looked at the experts of the various sects who had appeared in the sky above the sea. Du Xiaofu looked at the experts of the various sects and understood what Huolei meant. The experts of the ancient sects who had come out of the eternal tomb clearly knew that even saints would find it difficult to protect themselves in the ancient, desolate, ominous grounds. Yet they still brought so many supreme heavens prides of the younger generation with them. It was obvious that they wanted to take a gamble and obtain a great opportunity. The great calamity was coming. The opening of the ancient, desolate, ominous grounds had pushed the 9 great clans, the dragons, and the phoenixes to a point where they could no longer resist. Xiaofu! Du Xiaofu was lost in thought. Sima Muhan's beautiful figure appeared. You actually broke through a lot. It seems like you didn't slack off. Looking at the beautiful face in front of him, compared to before, it was more mature and charming. Her aura was even more vigorous and vast. Of course, during this period, the Divine Ancestor personally taught us. Sima Muhan smiled. When she saw Du Tingxian, O Yangshuang, and Du Xiaojing, her cheeks suddenly blushed. She stepped forward and greeted them. Mother, I miss you so much. Little Xingxing had already flown to Zixian's side with a pure smile on his little face. Little girl, I miss you too. Zixian smiled. Her eyes were like purple suns, as if she could see through everything in the world. Her purple robe was fluttering in the air with purple flames on it. She looked at Du Xiaofu from afar and didn't step forward. Her temperament was otherworldly. Chapter 2251. Greetings, Spirit Lord. When they saw little Xingxing, Huang Wu, Huang Ling'er, and the others bowing, they gasped secretly. This little guy looked harmless, but in fact, he was the most terrifying existence. At such a young age, he had already stepped into the sacred beast realm, and even obtained the vermilion bird's inheritance. Compared to him, they, the supreme sky prides of the Phoenix clan, wished they could dig a hole and hide in it. Don't stand on ceremony. Little Xingxing waved his hand at Huang Ling and the others. Greetings, Grand Shaman. Kong Sansi and several others from the Confucian school came before Du Xiaofu and bowed. Although the Grand Shaman was only an honorific of the Confucian school, everyone in the Confucian school knew how important this Grand Shaman was. Du Xiaofu waved his sleeve and smiled at Meng Qianhe, Jiang Yuechan, Hu Xuanhu, and the other familiar figures. Du Xiaofu would never forget the Taoist school and the Confucian school's help. Although he was now a saint, he didn't dare to be arrogant. Rock Emperor, we'll take our leave first. Hu Xuanhu, Jiang Yuechan, Meng Qianhe, and the others said from afar as they flew toward the ancient wilderness. Whoosh whoosh, the experts from the other mountain sects didn't want to be left behind. Oh, above the sea, the roars of beasts were like thunder. Many King Realm experts from the beast region appeared. Living beings seemed to be competing. Their figures were like lightning, and their auras were vast. Du Xiaofu looked at the sky and saw some familiar figures with powerful auras crossing the sky. They were Hongwe, Violet Lotus Fairy, and the others from the Yao realm. Master Flames Park also noticed the people from the Yao realm. He glanced at them, and something flashed in his eyes. Screech! Above the sky, spatial cracks were torn open again. Golden light shone, illuminating the sea. The faint cry of a rock pierced through the clouds and cracked rocks. The experts of the Golden-Winged Rock clan had arrived. Jialo Batian, Jialo Jueyu, Jialo Kailing, Jialo Juekong, and the other familiar figures all arrived. Their auras were domineering and fierce. Grandmother! Du Xiaofu saw a familiar figure. It was the old Granny Jialamola. At this moment, the old lady who was originally staggering seemed to have regained her vitality. Her aura was powerful and domineering, incomparably terrifying. Her eyes were like two golden suns contained within them. That was clearly the aura of a holy beast. "Greetings, Grandpa, Grandma?" Du Xiaofu saluted them in the air. He was happy that the old lady had stepped into the same realm. "Child." The old lady smiled kindly. "Greetings, seniors. Du Xiao. Du Xiao Batian Du and even Du Xiao Du ground, Yin Nanxia. Yin Lu Haha. Huan Yu. Nation, Yin Yan Yu Nun. He you. Why don't you go back to your clan and take a look?" After Jialo Kaling nodded at Du Xiaofu and Du Xiaojing, she fiercely rolled her eyes at Du Xiaofu. Her eyes were hot and inexplicably moving. If it weren't for the fact that there were many people present, she would have pulled Du Xiaofu's ears. "Later, I will definitely return to the clan to visit my foster father." Du Xiaofu smiled embarrassedly. No matter when or where he faced this sworn sister of his, he would always be somewhat fearful. This kind of fear stemmed from his emotions, a bloodline emotion. At this moment, many creatures in the surroundings had already entered, and there was no danger. "Let's go. It's time for us to go in." Jialo Batian stared at the opening in front of him. The entrance to the ancient barren ominous grounds was huge and spanned across a vast sea. Living creatures from all around had already entered, and so had people from all the major forces. "Go. Be careful." Master Flamespark's voice entered Du Xiaofu's ears. "I'll leave the barren country to you, great ancestor." Du Xiaofu transmitted his voice, his eyes sweeping across the void in front of him, reminding those around him to be careful. Swoosh, swoosh, in an instant, everyone's figures turned into flowing light. In a few flashes, they had already appeared in front of the entrance to the ancient barren ominous grounds. An ancient aura that seemed to have transcended time and space swept over, bringing with it a desolate killing intent. Just by arriving at the entrance, everyone could already feel the killing intent. Everyone immediately braced themselves and prepared for battle, not daring to be careless. The space at the entrance was distorted. Du Xiaofu was in the middle of it, fully focused, not daring to relax at all. From all directions, an extremely terrifying murderous aura spread out like ripples, as if it was about to spew out from this fearsome land. Even with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation, he still felt his mind becoming hot and dry, as if he was affected by it. Densely packed figures flashed past, accompanied by the thunderous roars of beasts. Batches after batches of people entered the ominous grounds. All the creatures had the same goal, to obtain a huge opportunity in the ancient barren ominous grounds. The entire sea area was in an uproar. People scrambled to enter the ancient barren ominous grounds, fearing that they would lose the opportunity if they were late. Some of the creatures knew that their cultivation was far from enough, and entering the ancient barren ominous grounds was tantamount to seeking death. However, at this moment, under the stimulation of such a crazy scene, their eyes turned red. They gritted their teeth and flew toward the ancient barren ominous grounds. Swoosh, among the crowd in the sea area, a spatial crack tore open, and many figures appeared. They were Dongli Qingqing, Dongli Ruoshu, Dongli Ruoyun, and several experts from the Fangji clan who had walked out of the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The leader was an old woman with a strong aura. She had stepped into the Saint Realm. "It seems that I can't enter the ominous grounds. You have to be careful. Du Xiaofu should have already entered. You should be the last to go with them. Be careful of the famous people," the old woman said. She had stepped into the Saint Realm, but for some reason, there was a hint of regret and disappointment in her eyes. It seemed that she could not enter the ancient barren ominous grounds. "Yes, master." Dongli Qingqing nodded. Her eyebrows were like emerald feathers, and her skin was as white as snow. Her hair was tied into a simple bun behind her head. Her clear eyes were like colored glaze, and she looked forward. Then, she flew away, followed by the others. In a corner of the void, a figure appeared. Under the illumination of the light, A white and fair face with distinct corners and corners could be seen. Especially the shape of the lips, which seemed to be showing off nobility and elegance. Under the long and curly eyelashes, there was a pair of eyes that were as clear as the morning dew, with a faint charm. Looking forward, the young man waved his sleeves and flew toward the ancient barren ominous grounds with the tide of creatures. His dark purple brocade robe reflected a faint purple radiance under the light. As it moved, it also outlined a seductive arc. The vast ancient land gave people a sense of desolation. The broken mountains, the cracked earth, and the ancient buildings buried in the ruins showed signs of decline. Chapter 2252. Translator, H2DH2 Mr. The sky was dark red, as if blood had dyed the clouds red. In the distance, huge skeletons of giant beasts appeared. The bones were white, but they were gray without any luster. The air was filled with a murderous aura. The wind whistled, mixed with the roars of battle. It was frightening and soul-stirring. Du Xiaofu and the others landed on an ancient building that was half submerged in the ruins. They all looked around with rapt attention. Some of the creatures that entered felt the aura of this group from afar. They didn't dare to get close and had already left. As expected of the great ominous ground. Everyone, be careful. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes. Although he had yet to encounter any danger after entering this ominous land, the murderous aura in the air made him not dare to be careless. Let's move alone. Yi Piaoling withdrew her gaze from the surroundings. Her pitch-black eyes looked at Du Xiaofu under the messy hair on her forehead. This ancient wilderness ominous ground is too dangerous. Even Saint Realm cultivators can't protect themselves. Du Xiaofu frowned worriedly. This was the ancient wilderness ominous ground. It was said that even Saint Realm cultivators couldn't protect themselves. Although Yi Piaoling and the others were powerful cultivators in the outside world, it was too dangerous to be separated here. Moreover, there were also legalism, famed masters, dragons, and other powerful cultivators. There are dangers everywhere. Saint Realm cultivators can't protect themselves. Who has surpassed the Saint Realm? Only through training can one transform. Dangers are also accompanied by opportunities. Yi Piaoling smiled and said to Du Xiaofu. Ever since he started cultivating, he had been tempering himself in dangerous situations. Although he had Du Xiaofu's help, he was able to attain his current level of cultivation because he had been tempering himself all this time. Although this place was dangerous, Yi Piaoling wasn't afraid. His goal of entering this ominous ground was to transform and improve himself. All right, be careful. Du Xiaofu nodded. He understood Yi Piaoling's words the most. It was indeed safer to follow everyone, but he would lose the chance to train himself. Du Xiaofu knew that if it were him, he would have made the same choice. Besides, he couldn't guarantee everyone's safety. All right. Yi Piaoling nodded and left with Changyu. I also want to walk around. I hope I can gain something, Mo Tian Shao said. Nether Demon, Tian Sha, Duger Fenshin, and the others expressed their desire to travel alone and train themselves. Du Xiaofu understood the temperament of Mo Tian Shao, Heavenly Demon Yellow Han, Duger Fenshin, and the others, so he didn't stop them and let them temper themselves. I'm already so old, and the great calamity is coming. There aren't many opportunities left. Let's take a gamble. Jin Qingchuan's eyes were smiling under his inverted triangular eyebrows as he bid farewell to everyone and left. Brother, father, be careful. There will be a greater chance if we travel separately, Du Xiaojing said. She also wanted to temper herself. This way, there would be a greater chance. Those ancient experts couldn't enter. She knew that with her father and brother's strength, even if they were besieged by enemies like legalism and dragons, they would be able to escape. There was no need to worry. There will be a greater chance if we travel separately. Be careful. Du Tingxian didn't stop Du Xiaojing. He already had the same plan in his heart. Old Lei didn't say anything, but from his expression, he naturally followed Du Tingxian. Hee, I also want to explore this fearsome land. Little Xingxing pouted as a faint golden flame appeared in his bright eyes. I feel that I should be able to find something in this fearsome land. Take care of yourselves. Du Xiaoyao turned into a ray of golden light and disappeared into the distance. Swoosh swoosh, Du shouting, Du Xiaojing, and the others didn't say anything. They left one by one. They all wanted to temper themselves alone. This fearsome land was the best place for them to do so. Let's go. Among the golden-winged rocks, Jialo Jiayu, Jialo Kaling, Jialo Jiakom, and the others also left. Like Mo Tianxiao and the others, they were already prepared to temper themselves alone. Child, be careful, Jialo Mola said to Du Xiaofu. He wasn't worried. He never spoiled the young golden-winged rocks. As soon as Jialo Mola finished speaking, he left with Jialo Batian. Du Xiaofu was left with Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, Little Blue who was in the true form of the Blue Phoenix, and the old monster of the Green Fox. Sima Muhan was also with the people of the Mo family before coming in. If you want to search for opportunities alone, you can go ahead, Du Xiaofu said to the old monster of the Green Fox. Then, Rock Emperor, be careful. The old monster of the Green Fox didn't stand on ceremony. After following Du Xiaofu for so long, he more or less understood Du Xiaofu's temper. He knew that there was no need to stand on ceremony. The reason he entered the ancient desolate ominous grounds was naturally to search for an opportunity. The old monster of the Green Fox also left. Du Xiaofu looked at Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, Dai Xingyu, Ouyang Shuang, and the others who were left with him at this moment, and smiled bitterly. If Yi Piaoling, Mo Tianxiao Dong Fan Qingmu, and his big brother Jingqing Chun went alone to temper themselves, although many of them might not be as strong as Dai Xingyu and Ouyang Shuang, after all, Mo Tianxiao, Yi Piaoling, and the others had risen through tempering themselves and had rich experience. This was something that Dai Xingyu and Ouyang Shuang could not compare with. Therefore, Du Xiaofu was really worried about Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, and the others in this ancient wilderness fearsome land. Follow me. Let's go. Du Xiaofu spoke. He glanced at the area in front of him, and then flew into the air. Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, Du Xiaoqing, and the others did not say anything and followed him. After Du Xiaofu and the others left for less than an hour, the number of creatures entering this ancient wilderness fearsome land had decreased by a lot. However, the sky above this sea area was densely packed with creatures. The murderous aura that swept out from the vast entrance blocked those creatures who were too weak. Although the ancient wilderness fearsome land was completely opened, it was difficult for creatures below the domain realm to pass through the murderous aura that swept out from the entrance. Some creatures who had not stepped into the domain realm tried to force their way through the murderous aura. In the end, they were affected by the murderous aura and self-exploded at the entrance. Many creatures suppressed their desire to force their way through and did not dare to risk their lives. The boiling sea area was still surging with waves. The scene was terrifying. At the corner of the entrance, a little girl and a little boy appeared. They were somewhat secretive and hiding. Although the girl was small, her two big eyes were rolling around, making her look lively. Although the little boy was not old, his body was tall and strong, giving people the feeling that he was a fierce lion or a true rock cub. These two people were none other than Du Xiaohuang and Du Xiuba who had secretly come here. This murderous aura is so strong that it can affect the soul. Du Xiuba looked at the entrance and felt that the murderous aura was extraordinary. He was not careless at all. Under his domineering temper, his heart was extremely delicate. Do you want me to protect you? Du Xiaohuang smiled proudly. No need, it's not difficult for me. Du Xiuba didn't want to be outdone by his younger sister, even though he knew that his strength wasn't as good as his younger sister's. He condensed his hand seals, and there was a faint golden light fluctuation on his body. His figure directly rushed into the entrance. Father, Sister Xingxing, I'm here too. Du Xiaohuang had a smile on her face, like a little girl who had done something bad and hid it from her parents. She followed Du Xiuba into the entrance. In the dark ancient land, murderous aura was everywhere. However, although this place was murderous, the spirit chi was extremely rich, far surpassing that of the outside world. There was also a kind of misty fog that contained an ancient aura. Breathing it in would make cultivators feel refreshed. It was obviously of great benefit to cultivation. Strange, why is there no sacred medicine in such a place with abundant spirit qi? Du Xiaofu's figure appeared in a valley, and he was a little surprised. Although he had only been in this dangerous place for an hour, he had already passed through many places. Logically speaking, in a place with abundant spirit qi and an ancient sealed place, it should not be strange to find precious medicine and sacred medicine. However, along the way, not to mention no precious medicine and sacred medicine, Du Xiaofu did not even find the spiritual medicine, so he could not help but feel a little surprised. The murderous aura here is too strong. Spiritual medicine needs a place with abundant spirit qi, but this murderous aura is enough to make it difficult for it to survive, Dai Xingyu said to Du Xiaofu. Under the guidance of her master, she was no longer the little girl from before. Little girl, you know a lot, Du Xiaofu praised. This little girl was no longer the same as before. Then, the group continued to set off carefully. In this ancient land, there was a misty fog, and the mountains rose and fell continuously, revealing the vicissitudes of life. There were white bones buried in the ground, and the soil and mountains were dark red as if they were dyed red by blood, adding to the murderous aura. This dangerous place is probably the final battlefield of the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation. It seems that many fierce creatures were buried back then. Ouyang Shuang checked the eerie white bones on the ground. They were huge, but unfortunately, they had turned into ordinary bones, and there were no secret bones left. Everyone said that this was the final battlefield of the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation. My master also said that, so it should be true. I wonder if there are still remnants of the blood essence of the true dragon and true phoenix here. If we can get it, it will be a great opportunity. As Dai Xingyu spoke, her eyes were shining. She looked forward to it, hoping that she would have the chance to get such a great opportunity. Du Xiaofu smiled. Not to mention that he didn't know whether there would be true dragon and true phoenix blood essence. Even if there was, such an opportunity would definitely not be easy to obtain. Little girl, be careful. Although this dangerous place is very far away, it is full of great danger everywhere. Don't be careless, Ouyang Shuang said to Dai Xingyu. Boom! Before Ouyang Shuang finished speaking, there was a tremor in the mountains not far away, like an earthquake. Accompanied by fog, there was a brilliant light. Chapter 2253. Let's go. Du Xiaofu gazed towards the source of the commotion and flashed over. There was a vast ancient mountain range before them. There were huge mottled ancient trees, but they were covered in withered branches and withered leaves. Rumble! Suddenly, space trembled as an energy palm suddenly descended from the sky and smashed down towards Du Xiaofu and the others. The terrifying palm was mottled with an ancient aura. The talisman markings on it glowed resplendently, and it seemed capable of blotting out the sky. It emanated a terrifying might that shattered space. It was too sudden, and it was such a dangerous attack. Fortunately, Du Xiaofu and the others had been extremely careful, and they'd sensed it a long time ago. Golden light swept out and carried Du Xiaoqing, Ouyang Shuang, and the others away swiftly. Bang! 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 The energy palm struck the place where Du Xiaofu and the others had just landed. The mountain was instantly shattered, and an abyss-like crack appeared in the ground. That was close. Little Tiger Du frowned. That energy palm from before was probably sufficient to smash a peak overlord realm expert into meat paste. Du Xiaofu gazed into the distance. That energy palm from before had been too sudden, and it carried an ancient aura as if it came from the primordial times. Big brother Xiaofu, there's someone there, and there's an ancient restriction as well. Dai Xingyu gazed at the mountain range before them, and she seemed to have noticed something. Be careful! Du Xiaofu shot out once more, and he could sense the auras of many living beings up ahead. The mountain range was very strange. It flickered with light, and there were shattered talisman markings that glowed and dimmed. They carried an ancient aura as if they contained an ancient aura. In front of a valley, there was a remnant restriction. It was like a barrier, and it seemed to lead to another mysterious place. Ancient seal. Du Xiaofu furrowed his brows. The aura of the powerful energy handprint that appeared just now was exactly the same as the aura of the restriction. It seemed that the one who had attacked him just now was not a person, but someone who had triggered this ancient restriction. The reason was very simple. Many creatures were fighting fiercely in front of him. Boom! The mountain rocks in front of him exploded. Many creatures were exchanging blows. Actually, there were only a few people who were truly exchanging blows. Even more creatures were watching from afar, as if they wanted to act according to the situation. In the fierce battle, a large black ape and a white-haired old man were the fiercest. Roar! It was a huge black ape. Its body was only a few dozen meters tall, but its aura was extremely terrifying. It was at the peak of the Beast region's master region. It was probably not far from the Saint Realm. Swish, swish. The white-haired elder held a treasured sword in his hand as he continuously clashed with the black ape. The battle was extremely intense, and the sword light was resplendent as it cut through the void. He's not far from the Saint Realm. Very powerful. Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger Du, and the others were shocked as they watched the fierce battle between the black ape and the white-haired elder. They were two experts, but they didn't usually appear in the outside world. Otherwise, experts at this level would be very famous and easy to recognize. You old bastard Qi Jian, you killed my descendant and cut off my bloodline. I won't let you off today. The black ape spoke. Its attacks were fierce, and its eyes were ferocious as it continuously attacked the white-haired elder. I only killed a few of your bloodline. At my level of cultivation, what's the use of having descendants? If you want more, you can just have more. The white-haired elder seemed to have the demeanor of a transcendent being, but his voice was gloomy. Sword light surrounded him, blocking the black ape's fierce attacks. You old bastard, you killed my bloodline. I'll kill you today. The black ape roared, and its body expanded. It then became 100 feet tall in front of many trembling eyes. It was like a towering mountain, emitting a black energy light. The void trembled as it raised its hand. A claw print seemed to tear through the void as it slammed toward the white-haired elder. It seemed to be able to tear through everything. What a powerful ape! Such a claw caused many of the creatures around to change their expressions. There were few below the Saint Realm who could compare to such strength. The white-haired elder's expression turned serious. He didn't dare to be careless. The treasured sword in his hand became increasingly dazzling as he used his ultimate move. He condensed the sword art and slashed out with a terrifying sword. Whoosh! Such a collision caused energy to surge, tearing through the void and the earth. It shook the ground as if there was an earthquake. It was extremely shocking. Arg! Some of the unlucky creatures around were affected, and screams were heard. I can't be bothered to tangle with you. The white-haired elder resisted the black ape's claw. His figure suddenly streaked through the air like lightning, instantly entering the ancient seal. Where do you think you're going? The black ape roared, and its body shrunk to dozens of feet. It then chased after him and entered the ancient seal as well. There must be an opportunity inside. Seeing that the black ape and the white-haired elder had entered, the surrounding creatures could no longer hold back and rushed in one after another. They felt that there was an ancient seal in this place, and that there would be a great harvest. Big brother, should we go in? Du Xiaoqing and the others fell behind Du Xiaofu. Seeing that many creatures had already entered the ancient seal, they couldn't help but feel a little tempted. Wait, don't be careless! Du Xiaofu raised his hand to stop them. From the sudden appearance of the powerful energy handprint, and the faintly uneasy feeling in his mind, he reckoned that the ancient seal in front of them was definitely not a good place. Even if there was a great treasure, it was best to act according to the circumstances. Du Xiaofu waited for only a few minutes. The ancient seal in front of them rippled, and a figure rushed out quickly. Pfft. Some of the figures seemed to be in an extremely sorry state. They seemed to have been sent flying and spat out blood. Chi La! A sword beam pierced through the void, piercing through the figure that was sent flying and killing him. Swish, swish! Another few sword beams shot out, mercilessly cutting a few creatures that were about to rush out into pieces. Whoosh! A figure rushed out. His clothes were tattered and he looked to be in a sorry state. He held a treasured sword in his hand and had a powerful aura. It was the white-haired elder who had entered the ancient seal first. It was unknown how the white-haired elder came out, as if he had experienced something terrifying. Then, he immediately saw Du Xiaofu and the others in the distance. His eyes turned blood-red, and there was a strange fluctuation of runes. He charged towards Du Xiaofu and the others, and the sword beam directly shattered the void. It was fierce and merciless. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. His attack was also straightforward. He directly raised his hand and slapped forward. In an instant, golden light swept out. Bang! The white-haired elder's sword beam was directly shattered as if it couldn't withstand a single blow. However, Du Xiaofu was surprised by this. Not long ago, he'd sensed that the white-haired elder's strength was only at the peak of the Overlord realm. However, the might of that sword strike from before was sufficient to reach the half-saint realm. It was inconceivable. The old man didn't seem to have concealed his cultivation just now, otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape the senses of Qinxi's soul. Kill! The white-haired elder was blasted back, but he didn't fear death. His killing intent surged as he charged forward once more. He slashed down with his sword, and the sword beam tore space apart. Energy surged violently, and revealed a long spatial rift. It was merciless. Du Xiaofu's face instantly sank. Even though he sensed that the white-haired elder seemed to have been affected by something, Du Xiaofu didn't care what the reason was from the white-haired elder's killing intent. You're courting death! Du Xiaofu snorted coldly. Golden light surged out from his body as his aura suddenly became domineering and sharp. He threw out a punch without any fancy moves. This was a martial technique that Du Xiaofu had only comprehended recently. He had obtained it from the heavenly demon battlefield. It was called the Star-Shattering Fist, and he had used it against the Azure Fox monster in the past. Boom! Bang! As the punch shot out, the air in its path was compressed to the point of exploding. Space distorted and collapsed. In the end, it forcefully collided with the white-haired elder's sword. Suddenly, the sharp sound of metal clashing rang out. Rumble! Afterwards, terrifying energy runes swept out, and the surrounding space exploded like fireworks, illuminating the mountain range. Bang! Bang! Space cracked. The white-haired elder bore the brunt of the attack, and his body was reduced to a mist of blood. Dai Xingyu and Ouyang Shuang both gasped on behalf of Du Xiaofu when they saw this. It shouldn't be that simple inside. Wait for me here. Don't act rashly. After killing the white-haired elder, Du Xiaofu did not care. Instead, he was curious about what was inside the ancient restriction. It was definitely not simple. However, Du Xiaofu did not dare to let Du Xiaoqing, Ouyang Shuang, and the others take the risk. After all, the white-haired elder was an expert who was not far from the Saint Realm. Even he seemed to have been greatly affected by the restriction. After that, Du Xiaofu also entered the ancient restriction. His body was wrapped in a golden chi light shield, and he was on high alert. Inside the ancient restriction, the space was distorted and somewhat blurry. The further they went, the more powerful the killing intent became. It could corrode the primordial spirit. So it's because of this. Du Xiaofu immediately understood why the white-haired elder would kill as if he had lost his mind. It turned out that he was really affected by the killing intent. This kind of killing intent was too strong, causing Du Xiaofu to secretly feel a sense of irritation. Although the white-haired elder was not weak, the killing intent was unstoppable. Du Xiaofu also became serious in his heart. It was no wonder that it was said that this place was extremely dangerous. It was very difficult for people below the sage realm to come out of this place. It was indeed very dangerous. Even a sage expert couldn't easily resist the murderous aura of this place. Before long, a huge vortex seemed to appear in the blurry space ahead. It was incomparably vast, like a nebula that revolved around it. As it rotated, cracks faintly appeared, allowing Du Xiaofu to clearly see a corner of it. Within it was a vast land, a pitch-black mountain range, an incomparably large white skeleton, and a vast expanse of broken walls and ruins. It was also emitting an extremely terrifying killing intent. The killing intent radiated from afar. Du Xiaofu could not help but tremble with the strength of his primordial spirit that contained the scarlet horse's bloodline soul and several spirit lightnings. Chapter 2254. What is this place? It's so terrifying! Du Xiaofu frowned. That place was too terrifying. He had never seen such a killing intent before. Roar! The roar of an ape rang out. Du Xiaofu saw the black ape that had entered earlier. At this moment, the black ape's figure had expanded to 100 zhang. Light filled the sky, as if it was burning. Its huge eyes were blood-red, as if they were covered in blood. For some reason, it charged into the spinning nebula. But in just a short instant, the black ape directly exploded within the nebula. It exploded soundlessly, and even the nebula did not ripple much. The black ape's cultivation was not low. Just like that, it turned into a bloody mist before Du Xiaofu's eyes, and then disappeared. But it was this silent disappearance that caused Du Xiaofu's spirit to suddenly tighten. A feeling of extreme danger spread out from the bottom of his heart. This feeling of extreme danger was something Du Xiaofu had never felt before. Whoosh! Within the nebula, the killing intent suddenly fluctuated. The nebula that had not rippled when the black ape exploded just now was now fluctuating, spreading towards Du Xiaofu. Not good! Du Xiaofu's heart tightened. He did not dare to stay any longer. Golden light surged out from the soles of his feet, and he retreated with all his might. The nebula behind him spun, swallowing everything in its path. There was no escape. Chi! Du Xiaofu's figure was like lightning as he escaped from the barrier. Rumble! As Du Xiaofu fled, the space behind him also collapsed inch by inch. The ancient restrictive barrier turned into nothingness. A large area of the mountain top split open, and huge rocks were swept away, and then disappeared. A monstrous killing intent rushed out from the ancient restrictive barrier that had turned into nothingness, and engulfed Du Xiaofu's body. Golden light burst out, and golden talisman runes turned into a pair of golden wings that covered his body. Chi-la-la! However, that terrifying murderous intent still shook Du Xiaofu's figure until he stabilized himself a few dozen feet away. The golden light talisman script retracted. Looking back, Du Xiaofu saw that the ancient restrictive barrier had already disappeared. He still felt a lingering fear. Du Xiaofu knew best that with the power of the Yuan spirit of an ordinary early-stage Saint Realm cultivator, even if they did not die, they would be seriously injured. Big Brother. Third Young Master. Seeing Du Xiaofu's figure, Du Xiaofu's editor, Lucas, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, Dai Xingyu, Ouyang Shuang and the others immediately rushed. Let's go. This place is not a good place, Du Xiaofu said to everyone. The things he had encountered earlier, as well as the vast ancient land shrouded in nebulas, were likely to contain some opportunities. However, Du Xiaofu didn't intend to explore them. Even if there was a huge opportunity, he didn't want to try it. He had to consider the fact that Du Xiaoqing, Ouyang Shuang and the others were still around. Du Xiaofu did not linger. He led everyone away. It was much safer to leave this ominous place as soon as possible. At this moment, Du Xiaofu had a new understanding of the dangers of the ancient desolate fearsome grounds. It could be said that he had truly experienced it. No wonder Huilei Laozu said that even a Saint Realm cultivator could not guarantee that they could get out alive. An ordinary early-stage Saint Realm cultivator would have been in trouble. Therefore, Du Xiaofu did not dare to be careless along the way. They also encountered many creatures along the way. However, those creatures avoided Du Xiaofu as soon as they saw him from afar. They did not have any intention to approach him. Everyone knew that even if the Demon King Du Xiaofu would not target them, they would not have a chance to get the treasures if they were too close to the Demon King Du Xiaofu. I don't know how big this place is, Ouyang Shuang said. Everyone's current speed was extremely fast. However, they did not know how vast this ancient, desolate, ominous place was. It seemed boundless, and they could not see the end. It should not be smaller than the heavenly devil battlefield, Du Xiaofu said. The sky was dusky in this vast ancient land. They did not have any harvest along the way. Occasionally, there would be a few scattered ancient weapons. However, they had lost their luster as if they had been obliterated by something. They were not of much significance to Du Xiaofu. They were very fast, but compared to Du Xiaofu's normal speed, it was considered very slow. After all, Little Qing, Little Tiger, and the others could not catch up. There seems to be some movement ahead. In the air, Du Xiaofu's silhouette halted as he stared ahead. There was a commotion there. There's the aura of the Phoenix clan. Little Qing of the Cyan Phoenix clan raised her eyebrows as she felt the aura of her clan. Let's go. Du Xiaofu felt the aura of the Phoenix clan. His heart tightened as he was worried about Zixian. He immediately flew up into the sky. The sky was dark, and it seemed a little depressing. A vast plain appeared in front of them. However, the void was shrouded in fog. It was so thick that it was like a haze. The higher they went, the thicker the fog was. It was so thick that they could not see anything. It was accompanied by a mysterious aura that could affect the primordial spirit. I feel a mysterious aura. It's very ancient and very dangerous. As they approached the plain, Ouyang Shuang secretly focused. Her big and beautiful eyes were shining. Du Xiaofu reminded everyone to be careful. He landed carefully and released his primordial spirit to be on guard. Although the mysterious aura here could affect the primordial spirit, it could only affect it. It could not be completely isolated. There were spatial energy fluctuations in the surroundings. It seemed that someone had just fought. As the group slowly approached, Du Xiaofu saw that the fog was gradually revealing a stretch of dilapidated fences and dilapidated walls. Some of these places were still quite well preserved. The whole structure was towering and magnificent. After so many years, it still gave people a sense of majesty and grandeur. The place was grayish-white. The ground was covered with a special kind of jade. Many places were broken and overturned. There were mysterious ruins everywhere, but they had lost their luster. However, there was still a mysterious power in the distance. Buzz! In the distance, there were even traces of electric arcs. Demon King Du Xiaofu, he's here! Not good. Why is this guy here? Some figures with extraordinary auras appeared in the surroundings. However, when they saw Du Xiaofu, they immediately murmured. Many gazes appeared in the fog and fell on Du Xiaofu and the others. Rock Emperor! Rock Emperor! Several figures came over with extraordinary auras. The one in the lead was the alluring Huang Linger. Her slender legs were alluring, and Feng Han was beside her. Su Yangzi of the Taoist sect was also among them. The other two were Bailey Wuya and Lu Jianchen, whom Du Xiaofu was quite surprised. Du Xiaofu did not expect these two guys to also enter this place of great danger. This should be an ancient mountain gate. There are powerful ancient arrays. Although it is broken and incomplete, it is still very dangerous. Feng Han directly told Du Xiaofu the situation here. Chapter 2255. Du Xiaofu scanned his surroundings but didn't see Zixian. Most likely, she wasn't with Huang Linger. However, there were quite a few experts gathered around. Most of them were Yao experts from the Beast region. Quite a few of them weren't weak. There were also quite a few talented youngsters who were protected by some older generation experts. After nodding at Huang Linger and the others, Du Xiaofu followed Feng Han's words and looked forward, sizing up the area. There really were traces of an ancient formation up ahead. Combined with the commotion just now, it was no wonder these people hadn't charged in yet. Rumbling sounds rang out. Talismans and mysterious runes suddenly lit up. Although they were incomplete, they converged into a dazzling beam of light that shot into the sky. A large area collapsed and the ground shook. Everyone was on high alert. They stared into the distance, sensing an ancient aura. There's definitely a treasure or opportunity here. I can sense the aura of a treasure. This is an extremely ancient mountain, way before the great dragon Phoenix tribulation. I feel like there's definitely a paragon's inheritance here. The surrounding creatures murmured with anticipation and desire. They were also quite nervous. After all, they all knew that this place was fraught with danger. Even saints could easily fall into calamity. Wealth comes from danger. This is a dangerous place, but it also has great fortune. After so long, I'd like to see just how dangerous this place can be. A burly middle-aged man with the aura of a powerful beast spoke up. He stepped out from the crowd, his eyes blazing. He couldn't resist the urge to enter. Quite a few creatures looked at him. Some looked at him with disdain, while others sneered inwardly. They welcomed someone who was willing to be a pawn. "I'll go too!" A thunderous roar came from an old man in his 50s. His aura surged, and the image of a ferocious leopard appeared around him. Its aura was astonishing. "It's the shocking sky leopard! He's still alive!" Someone cried out in alarm. This old man was quite famous, but he hadn't appeared in a long time. He was a terrifying expert of the leopard clan of the beast region. The two beast race experts then entered the forest. "Let's go. Follow them." As the two beast men strode forward, all of the surrounding living beings also hurriedly followed suit. "It doesn't seem simple." Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. He could feel the aura of thunder and lightning from the depths of the cave. The fluctuating electric arcs were not simple. "Should we go in?" Su Yangzi asked Du Xiaofu. With this fellow by his side, it was naturally much safer. "Let's go in and take a look." Du Xiaofu nodded. Although this place was not a good place, it should not be like the mysterious place in front of them. Feeling the aura of lightning, Du Xiaofu also wanted to investigate. Seeing that the Demon King and Du Xiaofu had also entered, the surrounding creatures no longer hesitated and followed behind them. Inside, there were dilapidated walls everywhere. Although some places were still intact, they were also covered in dust. Some creatures entered the ancient palace to search, but they didn't find anything. Du Xiaofu released his consciousness. With the talent of the red-bone horse monkey bloodline soul, it would be difficult for treasures to escape his senses. There were piles of rubble everywhere, and the ground was cracked. There was little vegetation, and it was shrouded in mist. Huge rocks could be seen everywhere, and there were also some dried-up bones scattered everywhere. Not far ahead, there was a light that overflowed into the heavens. Some creatures had touched something and caused an unforeseen event. Several experts had also been killed. Rumble! The entire ground shook and was filled with killing intent. It blocked all of the surrounding creatures, and no one dared to rashly approach. Walala! Mysterious runes surged out from all around, covering the sky and covering the sun. It was as if they were alive, causing the surrounding creatures' expressions to change. A damaged ancient formation, but it's very powerful. Du Xiaofu looked up and saw some traces of an ancient formation. It was a damaged formation that had been left behind, and it should have been the protective formation of this place. However, it was still very powerful, enough to make ordinary Saint Realm cultivators feel apprehensive. Moreover, they didn't know what would happen inside this ancient land, so they didn't dare to barge in. "This ancient formation is very powerful, but I seem to have seen it somewhere before." Dai Xingyu's clear eyes were filled with doubt. She looked forward as if she was inspecting something. Not long after, as the hand seal condensed, a light spread out from the hand seal and entered the damaged formation. "Xingyu seems to be able to break the formation." Huang Linger, Fenghan, Su Yangzi, and the others were all shocked, and their expressions changed inwardly. They also knew some talisman matrices and could feel that the incomplete matrix here was not ordinary. Now Dai Xingyu seemed to be able to break the matrix. Her attainments were definitely not shallow. Although Du Xiaofu was a little surprised, he didn't find it too strange. Dai Xingyu's master was someone at the same level as Fui Bai. Even Du Xiaofu had always suspected that among the five of them, only the East deity had yet to show himself. If he wasn't mistaken, Dai Xingyu's master was that East deity who had yet to show himself. Don't act rashly. After Dai Xingyu entered the formation, Du Xiaofu was naturally not at ease. After instructing Little Green, Little Tiger, and the others, he condensed hand seals and followed behind. Although this damaged formation was powerful, Du Xiaofu could still see through it. Moreover, with the talent of the red-bone horse monkey's bloodline soul, ordinary formations would not be able to stop Du Xiaofu. As for the other creatures, they saw Du Xiaofu and Dai Xingyu enter the damaged formation and were submerged in the damaged talisman script, but they didn't dare to enter. In the damaged formation, Dai Xingyu focused on breaking the formation, constantly condensing hand seals. Awu! However, this damaged formation was profound and complex. It emitted violent fluctuations, and a monstrous energy fluctuation condensed into a ferocious beast head. It distorted the void and tried to devour Dai Xingyu. Dai Xingyu's expression changed. She had just made a slight mistake and activated this damaged formation. This kind of power was not something she could easily withstand. Right at this moment, Du Xiaofu appeared beside Dai Xingyu. A red-bone horse monkey's shadow enveloped Dai Xingyu in an instant. The ferocious beast head roared and then disappeared. Within the red-bone horse monkey's shadow, Dai Xingyu's expression changed. There was still some lingering fear in her heart. Come, let's go inside and take a look. Du Xiaofu smiled and enveloped Dai Xingyu in the red-bone horse monkey's shadow. They then proceeded to break the formation. The red-bone horse monkey's talent allowed it to ignore ordinary formations. This gave Du Xiaofu a huge advantage. If it was Dai Xingyu, even if Du Xiaofu could succeed, it would take a lot of time. After about half an hour, a huge building appeared in the damaged formation. It had an ancient green color and was perfectly preserved. It seemed to be built with a special material and was indestructible. It seemed to have been standing here for a long time. ZZ. The surface of the huge building was filled with electric arcs that contained the power of lightning. Chapter 2256. Dai Xingyu looked around and said, "This place doesn't look simple. Maybe it used to be the main palace of this mountain gate." Du Xiaofu was very cautious. He also felt an unusual ancient aura here, especially one that contained the power of lightning. He gazed at the perfectly preserved Great Hall from afar. The mysterious runes on it were fluctuating, profound, and unfathomable. Then, Du Xiaofu's heart sank. This formation was actually very complete. There didn't seem to be any flaws. "Brother Xiaofu, the formation in front doesn't seem to be damaged." Dai Xingyu had also noticed this, causing her expression to turn serious. She had nearly encountered great trouble with the incomplete formation earlier, and it was obvious that there was a complete formation around the perfectly preserved main hall. Once it was touched, it would likely lead to terrifying consequences. Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. This formation was complicated and came from ancient times. Not to mention whether he could break it. Even if he could, it was definitely not something that could be done in a day. Furthermore, this was a complete array and not a broken one. Du Xiaofu didn't know if the red-bone horse monkey meridian spirit innate skill would work. If the red-bone horse monkey meridian spirit innate skill lost its effect, he would immediately trigger the array and the consequences would be dire. Be careful. Let's go. After thinking for a while, Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth. The red-bone horse monkey wrapped around him and Dai Xingyu, and they headed towards the main palace. In the midst of nervousness, the two figures smoothly entered the main palace under the red-bone horse monkey's shadow. Du Xiaofu let out a sigh of relief. After entering the main palace, he withdrew the red-bone horse monkey's shadow. However, his expression changed. As far as the eye could see, the enormous hall was actually empty. And in the depths of the main palace, there was a huge hole. It was so deep that the bottom couldn't be seen. ZZ. It led to the depths of the ground. It was filled with an ancient aura. Occasionally, there would be flashes of lightning. Rumble. Suddenly, a loud rumbling sound came from the deep passageway. It was like thunder, and lightning surged out. It was dazzling and dazzling, illuminating the deep and vast hall. It was like a rising sun accompanied by runes that flickered fiercely. After that, it was submerged and returned to normal. There's a treasure, an absolute treasure! Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly lit up. Just now, the red-bone horse monkey's meridian soul had clearly sensed the aura of a precious treasure. This precious treasure was related to thunder and lightning. Xinyu, wait for me here. Don't move around recklessly. Du Xiaofu instructed Dai Xinyu, wanting to investigate deeper. Okay. Brother Xiaofu, be careful. Dai Xinyu nodded. She knew that with her strength, she would only be a burden. Du Xiaofu nodded. His body was wrapped in golden light, and he jumped into the deep pit. The enormous pit was like a tunnel leading to the 9 nether hells. It was unknown how deep it was. Electric arcs constantly appeared, and the sound of sizzling could not be heard. It echoed in this bottomless tunnel, adding to the terror. Du Xiaofu carefully went deeper. His Xian Qi circulated in the god's watchtower. He did not dare to be careless. He wanted to go deeper. The crackling sound of the electric arcs became more and more intense. ZZ. After an unknown period of time, a bright electric arc rushed out from the depths of the pit with crackling sounds. ZZ. Du Xiaofu did not dodge. He secretly circulated his thunder martial vein and allowed the electric arc to land on his body. When it came into contact with his body, it released a bright electric arc. It was dazzling and then disappeared into his body. Du Xiaofu focused. This was purposely probing. This electric arc was not ordinary, but fortunately, it was not to the extent that he was afraid. The main thing was that he did not know what dangers were hidden below. As he continued to go deeper, Du Xiaofu encountered more and more electric arcs rushing out. They were like thunder, carrying with them the sound of thunder. Not long after, Du Xiaofu also discovered many floating boulders. They seemed to be the building materials of the hall. There were also many huge white bones floating. They were glowing with a white color, as if they had been floating here for a very long time. The area below the deep pit became wider and wider. It was as if half of it was endless, and one could not see the end of it. Rumble! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu felt a chill. An exceptionally bright bolt of lightning had silently appeared behind him. It exploded with resplendent lightning and charged towards him. Circulating his thunder martial vein, Du Xiaofu wanted to absorb the lightning into his body. However, suddenly, a pair of dazzling eyes opened within the lightning. The eyes were scarlet red and exploded with lightning. It actually went around Du Xiaofu's back and drilled towards Du Xiaofu's forehead. Du Xiaofu was surprised and did not dare to be careless. He turned his body sideways and his feet moved like a deity. He dodged the lightning attack and retreated to the side. At this moment, Du Xiaofu saw clearly that the lightning was actually a meter-long electric snake. It was fluctuating with resplendent electric arcs. This electric snake was very strange. It was not condensed by lightning, but was completely alive. It was the size of a thumb and was covered in scales that flickered with electric arcs. The electric snake even spat out electric arcs as it floated in the air. Its scarlet eyes were filled with coldness as it stared at Du Xiaofu. What is this? Du Xiaofu was surprised. There was no record of this item in the heavenly spirit record. Chi-La! The tiny lightning snake stared intently at Du Xiaofu and charged out once again. Lightning arcs were resplendent as runes filled the air. Despite its small size, an extremely impressive strength erupted from its tiny body. It was no weaker than an ordinary martial honorable. Du Xiaofu saw the item clearly. Although he was surprised by its power, he did not hold back. A purple electric arc surged out from his palm and directly shattered the electric snake. He then absorbed the power of lightning into his palm. Oh no! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's hair stood on end. He seemed to have felt something and suddenly looked into the distance. At this moment, a resplendent electric arc shone in front of him. Pairs of cold eyes opened and filled the air as they flew towards him. Rumble! It was a group of densely packed lightning snakes. They were all the same as the ones Du Xiaofu had just killed. They had gathered into a group of snakes, and one couldn't see the end of them. They filled the void. This is not good. It's strange. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and sucked in a breath of cold air. The strength of those electric snakes was nothing, but now that there were so many of them, he didn't know if there were tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of them. That was absolutely terrifying. Even an ordinary Saint Realm cultivator would be exhausted to death if they were trapped inside. Rumble! Countless electric arcs hissed and spat out electric arcs. They gathered together, and thunder rumbled. It was deafening, and the momentum was even more terrifying. Everywhere they passed, they seemed to be able to destroy everything. Hide! Du Xiaofu didn't want to fight it head-on. There were too many lightning snakes, and they were too frightening. They were accompanied by the power of thunder and lightning. He definitely couldn't fight it head-on. Who knew what other terrifying things were waiting for him? Chapter 2257. Boom! The sound of thunder resounded, and the resplendent talisman engravings covered Du Xiaofu's body. He activated his thunder martial vein, and in an instant, purple electric arcs rippled, bringing with them the sound of thunder. At this moment, the electric snakes that covered the sky seemed to have sensed something. Suddenly, fear appeared in their eyes, and they did not dare to come closer. They hurriedly stopped in front of him, but they did not leave. With the help of the flashing electric light, Du Xiaofu saw a dense storm of electric snakes. Some were 1 meter long, and some were actually more than 3 meters long. They were even more powerful. When they gathered together, the scene was very frightening. Woo-woo, as if they were afraid of Du Xiaofu's thunder martial vein, these electric snakes did not dare to come closer. However, for some reason, they did not leave. They blocked in front of him, as if they were protecting something. They made woo-woo sounds, and the electric arcs flickered in and out, looking very ferocious. Du Xiaofu originally wanted to escape, but seeing that these electric snakes were really afraid of the thunder martial vein, he relaxed a lot. The treasure is inside. After that, Du Xiaofu furrowed his brows. His innate talent of the red-bone horse monkey bloodline spirit could sense that the treasure he was looking for was behind this pile of lightning snakes. If he wanted to find the treasure, there was no way he could avoid this pile of lightning snakes. He didn't know what kind of place this was for such a strange thing to appear. Boom! Unable to dodge, Du Xiaofu did not want to waste any time. He activated his thunder martial vein, and in the midst of lightning and thunder, he crossed over. Accompanied by the sound of thunder, the void shook, and monstrous electric arcs flashed. Woo-woo! The densely packed electric snakes made woo-woo sounds, and they all retreated, fear in their eyes. Du Xiaofu quickly crossed over. These electric snakes did not dare to come close, so there was no need to attack to avoid causing any unforeseen events. He moved his body and quickly left. Looking at Du Xiaofu moving forward, these electric snakes did not dare to chase after him. Instead, they kept making buzzing noises, which gathered together to form a deafening thunderclap. After a while, Du Xiaofu managed to extricate himself from the densely packed lightning snakes. He could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Fortunately, the thunder martial veins seemed to be the nemesis of these lightning snakes. If they were to really fight, with so many lightning snakes to kill, the consequences would be terrifying. Passing through the densely packed electric arcs, Du Xiaofu didn't dare to stay any longer. He could also feel the aura of the treasure getting closer and closer. Continuing forward, the electric arcs inside became more and more resplendent. A particularly terrifying aura appeared. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to get close at all. Lightning flashed, and lightning radiance gushed out. Lightning talisman patterns appeared everywhere, causing the void to crack. It was dazzling and resplendent. Not long after, the void rumbled and electric arcs surged. In the vast void ahead, Du Xiaofu found the treasure under the guidance of the red-bone horse monkey talent. This is... Du Xiaofu was shocked. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Resplendent electric arcs brought along pitch-black cracks in the void. Blazing lightning radiance burst out, and an object about the length of an arm appeared. Its roots were completely connected by electric arcs, as if it had taken root in the depths of the void. It exploded with a dazzling light that was even more dazzling than the sun. This plant was very strange. It was silver-white in color, and did not have a single leaf. However, it was in full bloom. It looked like a lotus, but it was not a lotus. It was densely covered with mysterious talisman scripts. Electric arcs were constantly crackling, and a surging aura was violently spreading in all directions. Crackle! As these electric arcs bloomed, they illuminated the vast space with a resplendent glow. A powerful thunderbolt energy filled the air, causing Du Xiaofu, who was wrapped in the thunder martial vein, to involuntarily feel his heart tremble. This thunderous force was too powerful. It was enough to make an expert at the peak of the initial stage of the Sage Realm retreat. Solar Thunder Root! This is the legendary Solar Thunder Root! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu could not help but exclaim. He recalled a plant that was exactly the same as the one he had seen in the records. This was the Solar Thunder Root. The Solar Thunder Root was a legendary treasure for the cultivators of the Thunder Profound. It could only be encountered by chance, and not sought. It only existed in legends. No one could be sure whether the Solar Thunder Root existed or not. However, its value was not less than the 9 revolutions divine Lei Lian. It was said that if a cultivator of the Thunder Profound could obtain the Solar Thunder Root, it would be a trivial matter for them to achieve twice the results with half the effort. More importantly, it could be fused with the 5 veins. Once the Solar Thunder Root was planted deep in the body, one would be able to mobilize the thunderous force of the heaven and earth. The comprehension of the Thunder Profound would progress by leaps and bounds. Phew! Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. It was difficult for him to calm down the excitement in his heart. Du Xiaofu had already seen the purple Thunder Profound cauldron, the space of the God domain, and other treasures. Therefore, he would not be so excited about ordinary treasures. Under normal circumstances, Du Xiaofu wouldn't be so excited just because of the Sun Lightning Root. However, the Solar Thunder Root had a different value for Du Xiaofu now that he had the Thunder Martial Veins, and was cultivating the Thunder Profound. Du Xiaofu knew that the Solar Thunder Root would bring great benefits to the Thunder Profound if he could obtain it. He could feel the resplendent Solar Thunder Root that was connected to the entire void. The surging power of thunder and lightning seemed to have formed a sea of thunder and lightning in the void. The electric arcs fluctuated as if they were about to converge into thunderbolts. Du Xiaofu reckoned that this was not an ordinary Solar Thunder Root. My goodness, this is an unexpected harvest! Du Xiaofu was pleasantly surprised. He hadn't expected that this place would give birth to such a legendary treasure. How could Du Xiaofu let go of such a treasure? An ordinary expert at the peak of the initial stage of the Sage Realm wouldn't dare to approach this Solar Thunder Root. However, Du Xiaofu wasn't an ordinary expert at the initial stage of the Sage Realm. Moreover, he was proficient in the Thunder Profound. The electric arcs fluctuated as the hand seals condensed. The resplendent lightning surged out, and transformed into a huge purple thunderbolt hand seal. It contained the power of the Thunder Martial Veins. Du Xiaofu wrapped the Solar Thunder Root, and sealed it in his hand. Chi La! Suddenly, the electric arcs in the surroundings issued a strange sound. Then, an unusual energy quietly emerged. Du Xiaofu didn't know why this energy fluctuation made him feel a chill in his heart. It was an extremely dangerous aura. Chi! Suddenly, 2 groups of blazing lightning balls appeared in the front of the resplendent electric arcs. They were as big as 2 bright moons. The lightning was so resplendent that even Du Xiaofu felt dazzling. This is a living thing! He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the 2 bright moon-like lightning balls. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu felt goosebumps all over his body. Those 2 lightning balls were living things. They were 2 huge eyes. Du Xiaofu felt goosebumps all over his body. Suddenly, the outline of a huge object appeared in the void. It seemed as if it wanted to cover the entire void. Du Xiaofu's scalp began to tingle at this moment. A feeling of extreme danger crawled out from his heart. Chapter 2258. At the same time, thunder roared all around the void. The surging power of thunder and lightning rippled crazily, condensing into bolts of lightning that were at least 100 feet long. Under the dazzling light of the lightning, Du Xiaofu could see clearly that it was a gigantic strange beast that was thousands of feet long. Its entire body was wrapped in lightning, like a tiger or a lion. Its ferocious eyes were like two bright moon-sized suns. It was filled with a terrifying thunder and lightning aura that far surpassed the early stage of the Saint Realm. Rumble! This terrifying thunder beast made its move. With a low groan, the sound waves were like endless thunder, rumbling and deafening. Its huge ferocious eyes were fixed on the solar thunder root in Du Xiaofu's hand. Spiritual thunder? No, it's a demon spirit. It's at least in the late stage of the same demon realm. Du Xiaofu was shocked. He originally thought that this terrifying thunder and lightning aura was a spiritual thunder, but it turned out that it was not a spiritual thunder, nor was it a beast. It was a demon spirit, a terrifying demon spirit. Feeling the terrifying pressure of the thunder and lightning, Du Xiaofu estimated that this terrifying monster was not much weaker than Hole Laozu. Du Xiaofu closed his eyes and knew that the appearance of such a terrifying demon spirit beast definitely had something to do with the solar thunder root in his hand. Du Xiaofu definitely did not want to miss out on a treasure like the solar thunder root. Chi La. In an instant, Du Xiaofu gritted his teeth and directly stuffed the solar thunder root in his hand into his mouth. In the midst of the thunder and lightning, Du Xiaofu did not even need to chew. The solar thunder root actually melted in his mouth, turning into a ball of spiritual liquid. However, the spiritual liquid formed by the solar thunder root made Du Xiaofu feel as if he had swallowed a large mouthful of thunder and lightning. It was as if his throat was being torn apart and his mouth was about to explode. Along with a surge of vigorous energy that could topple mountains and overturn seas, it directly spread throughout his body. The feeling was indescribable. Roar! Seeing that Du Xiaofu had actually eaten the sun thunder root, the giant thunder beast immediately roared. Undisguised killing intent gushed out from its ominous eyes. Countless dazzling lightning bolts appeared in the surroundings, and pitch-black space fissures opened up in the void, causing one's soul to tremble. Boom! Without any hesitation, ignoring the discomfort in his body, Du Xiaofu directly activated the thunder martial vein. The cyan spirit armor covered his entire body. The mysterious purple thunder talisman charm exploded. The cyan spirit armor shone brightly. The feather-like armor carried the domineering will of the golden-winged rock race. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's body was also surrounded by purple lightning. From afar, he looked like the god of thunder who had descended. He was filled with the supreme power of thunder, and his murderous aura spread. There was no murderous aura, but it reflected the majesty of creation and the righteousness of heaven and earth. It could shake the heavens and punish all living things. When the thunder martial vein covered Du Xiaofu's entire body, the giant thunder beast's ominous eyes suddenly fluctuated violently. It seemed as if the sea of thunder was surging with stormy waves. An even more dreadful aura swept out and agitated the vast and mighty void. However, the killing intent in the giant thunder beast's eyes had subsided a lot. It stared at the thunder martial vein on Du Xiaofu's body. There was surprise, fear, curiosity, desire, and some kind of reverence in its eyes. Its huge body even drew back a little. Du Xiaofu didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this moment. Who would have thought that the sun thunder root would be so disgusting? Wasn't it said that the function of the sun thunder root was to fuse martial veins? However, it didn't say that the energy contained in the sun thunder root was so huge and vigorous. Moreover, it was so violent and destructive. An ordinary expert of the initial stage of the sage realm would have exploded and died if his body hadn't been tough enough. At this time, Du Xiaofu's thoughts would have been enough to arouse public anger if the experts of the outside world had known about it. Du Xiaofu had eaten a treasure like the sun thunder root in such a wasteful manner. Moreover, he had even complained that it tasted bad. How could others live with this? The pain that Du Xiaofu had endured had eased a little after he had stimulated the thunder martial vein. The thunder martial veins seemed to have a suppressive effect on the violent thunder and lightning energy contained in the sun thunder root. That surging thunder and lightning energy was surging violently in his body towards the thunder martial vein. It was accompanied by a mysterious energy that was gradually fusing with the thunder martial vein. It was showing signs of strengthening the thunder martial vein. Senior, I've already eaten the sun thunder root. Why don't we have a discussion? I'm willing to exchange other treasures for it. What do you think? Du Xiaofu looked at the mountain-like giant thunder beast in front of him and asked. His pupils were secretly rolling in his eyes. He wanted to find an opportunity to escape. It wouldn't be wise to start a fight with this giant thunder beast. Who are you? The giant thunder beast opened its mouth. Even though its voice was like thunder, there was a childish tone to it. The voice reverberated in Du Xiaofu's ears, causing Du Xiaofu's eardrums to tingle. Senior, my name is Du Xiaofu. I'm from the outside world. Looking at how the giant thunder beast seemed to be interested, Du Xiaofu opened his mouth. But hearing that childish voice, Du Xiaofu was a little suspicious. Could it be that this giant thunder beast had yet to complete its human form? Outside, the giant thunder beast stared at Du Xiaofu. The curiosity in its eyes intensified. It then opened its mouth and said, Eat my sun thunder root. The martial veins in your body, let me study, and I'll let you leave. The intermittent voice of the giant thunder beast reverberated through the void. Those gigantic eyes were like a sea of thunder as they stared fixedly at Du Xiaofu. If Du Xiaofu made any move, it would definitely strike immediately. Study the thunder martial veins. Du Xiaofu was taken aback. Then he pondered. Sensing the aura of this huge lightning beast, he knew that if he were to fight it head-on, he would be the one at a disadvantage. Not to mention, there was still Dai Xingyu and the others outside. However, he did not know if he should trust this huge lightning beast. Your martial veins. I seem to have seen them before. I'm very familiar with them. I need. The giant thunder beast stared at Du Xiaofu and continued. If I let you study the thunder martial veins, you'll let me stay here? Du Xiaofu raised his eyes and stared at the giant thunder beast. Yes. The giant thunder beast nodded. Okay, deal. Du Xiaofu clenched his teeth and nodded. Who would have thought that there would be such a big guy here? At this moment, it seemed that he had no choice but to agree. The giant thunder beast was a thunder demon spirit. His thunder martial veins should be useful to it. Then, it wouldn't trick him, but it was hard to say whether it would burn the bridge after crossing the river. However, the surging energy of the sun thunder root in his body made Du Xiaofu think of a way to deal with it immediately. Du Xiaofu had no other choice. He continued to cover the thunder martial veins and sat down cross-legged. Purple thunder runes spread out in half the void, condensing into strands of purple thunder runes and deducing the mysteries of the thunder martial veins. Looking at this scene, the giant thunder beast's eyes were filled with longing and joy. Chapter 2259. Staring at the purple lightning runes around Du Xiaofu, the giant lightning beast was immersed in them. Time passed slowly. No one knew what was happening in the void below the pit. It's been so long. Will Big Brother Xiaofu be okay? In the main hall, Dai Xingyu had a serious expression and was worried. It had been more than 40 hours. She couldn't help but worry about Du Xiaofu. Demon King Du Xiaofu went in. Why hasn't he come out yet? Could it be that the Demon King Du Xiaofu has already taken the treasures inside? The living beings waiting outside also started to become restless. After such a long time, the Demon King Du Xiaofu and Dai Xingyu still hadn't come out. Perhaps they had obtained some great treasures. However, these living beings still didn't dare to act rashly. This ancient incomplete formation was too strong. They didn't dare to touch it easily. Ouyang Shuang, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, and the others also had serious expressions at this moment. The vast expanse of space was densely covered with lightning. Within a purple lightning world, vast and boundless murderous aura spread out. Lightning arcs condensed in the surroundings and roared madly like giant pythons. Rumbling sounds of lightning flashing and thunder resounded incessantly in this expanse of space, causing it to be extremely shocking and strange. In the void, a gigantic mountain-like thunder and lightning beast silhouette appeared, quietly filling the void. Lightning flashed all around, illuminating the void. Resplendent thunder and lightning talismans interweaved with each other. Within the purple lightning world, a figure was seated with his legs crossed. Purple lightning circled around his body. Electric arcs danced around him in a frenzy, shuttling back and forth on the surface of the green spirit armor, causing the color of the golden-green spirit armor to become increasingly deep, revealing a purplish gold color. Time didn't have much meaning in this deep pit. Unknowingly, 3 days passed. In these 3 days, Du Xiaofu comprehended the mysteries of the lightning martial vein. He also absorbed the dense energy from the sun thunder root in his body and refined it into the god's watchtower. Ordinary early Saint Realm cultivators wouldn't dare to swallow such surging energy. It was too dangerous. It was undoubtedly suicide. For ordinary people, directly swallowing the sun thunder root was undoubtedly a waste of a treasure. However, it was different for Du Xiaofu, who cultivated the cultivation method of the golden-winged great ping. After being refined by the cultivation method of the golden-winged great ping, it was enough to absorb the vast amount of energy from the sun thunder root into the great golden pingpun. The mysterious energy contained within the sun thunder root had already fused with Du Xiaofu's lightning martial vein. It flowed within the lightning martial vein, quietly causing Du Xiaofu's lightning martial vein to become even more resplendent. It also allowed Du Xiaofu to feel the mysteries of lightning spreading. It was as if he had gained enlightenment. This kind of feeling was incomparable to any other feeling for cultivators. The temptation brought about by this kind of enlightenment was something that cultivators couldn't resist. In just over 60 hours, Du Xiaofu could clearly feel that his understanding of the mysteries of lightning had improved a lot. The profound energy in the god's watchtower had also improved a lot. This kind of improvement allowed Du Xiaofu to clearly feel that he was moving towards a higher level. Finally, after 40 hours, the purple lightning runes began to weaken. In the end, they quietly calmed down and slowly dissipated into the void. Crackle, crackle! At the same time, the purple lightning arcs that filled the surface of Du Xiaofu's body also swept into Du Xiaofu's blue spirit armor amidst a series of crackling sounds and disappeared. When the last strand of purple lightning disappeared, Du Xiaofu's tightly shut eyes slowly opened after his eyelashes trembled slightly. Boom! The moment he opened his eyes, 2 substantial bolts of purple lightning suddenly burst out from Du Xiaofu's eyes. They were like purple lightning pythons that tore through the void with a roar. They soared into the sky and directly swept into the depths of the void. A vast and unparalleled aura also swept out from Du Xiaofu's body, shaking the void. Huff! As a mouthful of turbid air was spat out from his throat, the aura on Du Xiaofu's body calmed down. The resplendent purple lightning in his eyes also gradually retracted, returning to a clear and bright state. Probing with his mind, Du Xiaofu's face suddenly revealed an uncontrollable joy. The corners of his mouth lifted into a happy arc. After refining the sun lightning root, the aura on his body rose sharply. If he relied on himself to cultivate, it would probably take at least a few years. More importantly, his thunder martial veins had obviously strengthened by a lot. There was also his comprehension of the mysteries of lightning. As expected of a great treasure, Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. A great treasure like the sun lightning root was indeed worthy of its reputation. Without being too distracted, Du Xiaofu did not forget that he was still in a dangerous situation. He raised his eyes and looked ahead. The outline of the giant lightning beast appeared. Electric arcs flickered around its body. Endless aura filled the air. The giant ferocious eyes were already closed. It seemed to be immersed in comprehension. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was the one who carefully observed this giant creature. He could not help but feel shocked. Where was this place? It actually gave birth to such a great treasure like the sun lightning root, and gave birth to such a terrifying creature. The aura on its body was not much weaker than that of Huolei Laozu, However, Du Xiaofu vaguely felt that although this giant creature's aura was terrifying, it seemed to be lacking something. It was still quite immature. It is immersed in comprehension. It is comprehending the mysteries of lightning. Du Xiaofu muttered to himself. This giant creature was comprehending the mysteries of lightning. As promised, it did not attack him. However, he did not know if it would fulfill its promise after waking up. Now was the best time to leave. Go! He had already obtained the sun lightning root. There were still people waiting outside. This was the best time to leave. Du Xiaofu would not miss this opportunity. Naturally, he would not be stupid enough to wait for the giant creature to wake up. At that time, he did not know what the consequences would be. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, Du Xiaofu's figure suddenly stopped. He looked back at the giant creature in front of him, and frowned. There was a light flashing in his eyes, as if he was hesitating about something. Fine, I have obtained your sun lightning root. I will also give you an opportunity. In the future, we will not owe each other anything. I hope that after you wake up, you will not find trouble with me. Du Xiaofu spoke like this. As soon as he finished speaking, strands of violet-colored talisman markings of lightning floated up into appearance from the center of his palm, and in the end, they transformed into an arm-sized violet-colored pillar of lightning that was extremely dazzling. Moreover, a strand of vast aura of execution spread throughout the sky, and it revealed the might of creation and the righteousness of the heavens and the earth. Go! With a light shout, Du Xiaofu waved his hand, and the purple lightning beam in his hand pierced through the air, directly plunging into the space between the eyebrows of the behemoth that was tightly shut. In a flash, it disappeared without a trace. Tis! At the same time, Du Xiaofu's figure broke through the void and left without any hesitation. Thank you, Mas Fu. I will go look for you. Just as Du Xiaofu left, a tender voice rang out. Along with the faint vibrations of electricity, it reverberated through the void. Chapter 2260. With a light shout, Du Xiaofu waved his hand, and the purple lightning beam in his hand pierced through the air. It directly plunged into the space between the eyebrows of the behemoth, and disappeared in a flash. TSK. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's figure broke through the air and left without any hesitation. Thank you, Mas Fu. I will go look for you. Just as Du Xiaofu left, a tender voice rang out. Accompanied by the faint vibrations of electricity, it reverberated through the void. Du Xiaofu left and got out of the void without a hitch. Along the way, he did not meet with any of those scary electric snakes. When Dai Xingyu, who was already filled with worry, caught sight of Du Xiaofu, her solemn face finally relaxed. Let's leave first. We can't stay here for long, Du Xiaofu said to Dai Xingyu. There was that horrifying being inside. The further they got, the better. But by the time Du Xiaofu and Dai Xingyu reached the entrance, there was already a huge mess. Lightning flashed and thunder boomed, deafening their ears as thunder filled the entire sky. Roar! Many powerful beings of the beast race had activated their true forms and roared out like thunder. Even Huang Linger, Little Tiger, and Du Xiaoqing were no exception. Their auras were torrential. Bam! 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 Huang Linger, Fenghan, Suyangzi, and the others were not in a good state either. They were injured and looked wretched. The remnant formation has exploded. Not good. Du Xiaofu's face changed. Immediately, he struck out to help Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, O Yangshuang, Suyangzi, and Huang Linger. With Du Xiaofu's help, Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, and Huang Linger managed to break free. But the explosion of the remnant formation was a disaster for the other living beings. Almost no one could escape as they were all destroyed by the thunderbolts. Run! Outside the entrance, there were some living beings who were further away and did not manage to enter in time. Looking at the frightening commotion, they fled immediately. Bam! 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 That. How? That was. Huang Linger, Feng Han, Su Yangzi, and the others sucked in a breath of cold air with lingering fear in their hearts. They had almost all died inside. This place was indeed abnormally dangerous. Soon after, Du Xiaofu found out from the others that someone could not help but barge into the formation. In the end, for some reason, the remnant formation exploded. Fortunately, it was a remnant formation. Otherwise, no one would be able to escape. Thank you? After calming down, Huang Linger, Su Yangzi, and the others thanked Du Xiaofu. They owed him a big favor. Let's leave as soon as possible. This place is not good. We can't stay here for long. Du Xiaofu did not tell the others what happened inside. He had obtained the solar thunder root alone, but he had helped Huang Linger and the others, so he felt at ease. As for this place, Du Xiaofu knew that the big guy was still inside. Once it chased him out, he would not be its opponent. It was better to leave as soon as possible. After bidding farewell to Huang Linger, Su Yangzi, and the others, Du Xiaofu left with Huang Linger, Dai Xingyu, and the others. He had no intention of going with Huang Linger and Su Yangzi. Huang Linger, Su Yangzi, and the others looked at the backs of Du Xiaofu and the others as they left. They felt a little helpless. After such a long time, it was impossible for that guy to not obtain anything inside. However, they understood the former's temperament, so they did not ask too much. Moreover, if it was not for the Demon King's help, they would not have been able to escape. Su Yangzi, Huang Linger, and the others also had no intention of going with Du Xiaofu. With the Demon King's strength and temperament, it might be safer to follow the Demon King, but they could forget about obtaining any opportunities. What is inside? Along the way, Ouyang Xuan curiously asked Du Xiaofu. The solar thunder root has been obtained. Du Xiaofu smiled and told the others. He naturally had nothing to hide from the people around him. What? The solar thunder root is that legendary treasure? However, Little Qing, Ouyang Xuan, and the others were shocked when they heard this. It was actually that legendary treasure. Du Xiaofu still did not dare to lower his guard along the way. He carefully continued to move forward. He also had some gains along the way. He even obtained 2 extraordinary ancient sacred artifacts. He also encountered some dangers, but with Du Xiaofu's strength and cultivation, it could be considered a daunting experience without any mishap. A few days later, Du Xiaofu and the others arrived at a vast sea. The sea water was suffused with a faint blood-red color, which was very strange. Beside the sea, there were some people sitting cross-legged on some mountain rocks. They were meditating and recovering. It seemed that they had fought a great battle not long ago. Many of them also had injuries that were not light. Seeing this scene, Du Xiaofu immediately did not dare to be careless. He landed on the sea and spread his consciousness. The sea water rippled with light, and its aura was very special. It gave people an uncomfortable feeling for no reason. It's the Demon King Du Xiaofu! The creatures in the surroundings saw Du Xiaofu and caused a small commotion. After all, the Demon King Du Xiaofu was too famous, whether it was in the 3 continents, Kyushu, or the other world. Friend, where is this place? Du Xiaofu heard the commotion and looked around. In the end, he found a middle-aged man and asked. The Rock Emperor. Seeing that the Demon King Du Xiaofu was actually asking him questions, the middle-aged man was clearly flattered. He quickly got up and respectfully told him everything he knew. It turned out that there were some strange beasts in the sea. They were very powerful, and ordinary cultivators could not deal with them. These powerful beasts in the sea had ancient talismans and mysterious runes on their bodies. They might be ancient beasts left behind from ancient times. If one could obtain their mysterious bones and comprehend them, it would definitely be very beneficial. I see. Du Xiaofu looked at the sea and was somewhat interested. He did not expect that there would be ancient beasts in the ancient desolate ominous grounds. Then, Du Xiaofu turned around. Suddenly, his gaze froze. He did not know when, but Du Xiqing's eyes were suffused with green and red flames, and her aura was blazing. I feel an aura connected to my bloodline. It's on the other side, Du Xiqing said with an excited expression. She could not be wrong about the aura connected to her bloodline. It was on the other side, but it was too much for her to feel. Let's go, Du Xiaofu said. It seemed that they had no choice but to cross this strange sea. Whoosh whoosh. After telling everyone to be careful, Du Xiaofu led everyone into the air and flew towards the strange sea. Chapter 2261. The sea was vast, and the sea water was strangely red. A faint smell of blood floated above the sea, dyeing the fog above the sea into a strange light red color. Boom! The sea water surged and a huge wave rippled in all directions. The waves surged and light gushed out. A giant beast hundreds of feet long emerged from the water. This giant beast was covered in thick scales. Its eyes were scarlet, and its aura was terrifying. It opened its ferocious mouth and rushed toward Du Xiaofu and the others, intending to swallow Du Xiaofu and the others in one gulp. Looking carefully, this was a giant fish. Its head was like that of a ferocious beast. There were fangs in its mouth that were like the fangs of a wolf, emitting a cold light. This fish was very powerful. Its aura was monstrous. It was probably not something that an ordinary domain realm cultivator could deal with. Bang! Du Xiaofu attacked. He punched out and directly shattered this giant fish. At the same time, Du Xiaofu stretched out his hand. As the golden light flashed, an arm-sized mystic bone appeared in his hand from the exploded blood mist. The mystic bone was sparkling and translucent, but it was suffused with a bloody color. The mysterious runes on it flickered, revealing a faint murderous aura. This kind of fish left behind from ancient times seems to have been affected. The mystic bone is an evil creature. Comprehending it is not beneficial to people. It will cause them to go crazy, Du Xiaofu said. The mystic bone in his hand was crushed in the air and turned into powder that fell into the sea. After a while, Du Xiaofu and the others were attacked again. A monster that looked like a dragon but was not a dragon. It was like a shark but not a shark. It carried a murderous aura and a powerful aura. It pounced forward, stirring up waves that were hundreds of feet high. It was extremely shocking. This monster in the water was powerful, but it was far from being a match for Du Xiaofu. It was easily dealt with by Du Xiaofu. The mystic bone also fell into Du Xiaofu's hands. However, this mystic bone was just like the giant fish. Du Xiaofu only took a glance at it and destroyed it. Immediately after, Du Xiaofu killed a few more powerful demonic beasts in the water. The secret bones were all exactly the same, they were all demonic creatures. The demonic beasts in this sea area seem to have been affected. Although they are a race left behind from ancient times, comprehending this secret bone will only bring more harm than good. Du Xiaofu said to Du Xiaoqing, Little Tiger, O Yangshuang and the others. Those secret bones were also destroyed. Not long after, Du Xiaofu also encountered a kind of strange water demon beast. It had actually mastered the profound meaning of water. It was very powerful and frightening. Its strength had also reached the level of half-step saint. In the end, Du Xiaofu had to expend a lot of effort to solve the problem and obtain the secret bones to study. This kind of demonic beast was born with the ability to control the water Upanishad. It would be a great opportunity if he could comprehend the mysterious characters of the talisman. Unfortunately, this mysterious bone was also an evil item. After weighing the pros and cons, Du Xiaofu could only endure the heartache and destroy the mysterious bone. What a pity! Du Xiaofu was heartbroken. He then continued on his way to cross the sea area. The sea area was densely covered with islands. However, not a single blade of grass grew. The rocks were dark red in color. This sea area was very vast and seemed to be boundless. The deeper they went, the stronger the demonic beasts in the water they encountered were. There were many demonic beasts at the level of half-step saint. Along the way, some creatures were killed. This sea area was indeed not something that everyone could cross. It was impossible to cross without the cultivation of the saint realm. The endless demonic beasts in the water were difficult to deal with without the cultivation of the saint realm. Along the way, Du Xiaofu had not encountered any Saint Realm cultivators from the major forces. A huge island like a huge mountain was occupied by many giant crocodiles. They were covered with lightning and had a powerful aura. This was a group of terrifying giant crocodiles. They blocked the path of Du Xiaofu and the others. The leading crocodile's cultivation level was enough to set foot in the Saint Realm. Du Xiaofu took action to protect Ouyang Shuang and the others. He used the Thunder Martial Vein and the Supreme Beast ability of the Golden-Winged Rock to kill the group of giant crocodiles at lightning speed. The remaining Saint Realm Giant Thunder Crocodile also fought for a while before he killed it with the overbearing fist and obtained the mysterious bone. What a pity! What a pity! Du Xiaofu's heart ached. This lightning crocodile was a remnant species from before the Dragon Phoenix tribulation. It seemed to be born with the ability to cultivate the profound meaning of thunder and lightning. If this sage-level mystic bone had not been affected, it would have been of great value to him. Unfortunately, this mystic bone had also been affected. A day later, a huge dragon-like silhouette lay in front of them. "We are about to cross this strange sea area," Ouyang Shuang said as she looked at the huge dragon-like silhouette in front of them. They were finally going to cross the sea area. Something's wrong. Du Xiaofu probed with his mind and felt a terrifying aura. This aura was much stronger than the aura of the giant thunder crocodile in the early stage of the Saint Realm. Woo! Almost at the same time, the water surface surged and stormy waves surged. A giant fish that was thousands of feet long leaped out of the water. The giant fish had wings on its back. It was unclear whether they were fins or wings. They were filled with a dark light, more like wings. This giant fish leaped out of the water like a giant rock soaring into the sky. Its aura was so terrifying that it caused the sea area within a radius of 10,000 miles to surge. Roar! Almost at the same time, in the depths of the void ahead, a vast expanse of fog covered the void, as if it was going to cover the entire sea region. The surrounding light also abruptly fell into darkness. From the dim fog, a ferocious giant ape appeared. It was hundreds of feet tall, like a huge mountain. It was covered with thick grayish-white scales. Its red eyes were like two blood moons covered by the thick fog. Its aura was fierce and gloomy. Woo! In just a moment, the giant fish spread its wings. A dark light was emitted from its huge body and spread in the void. Its terrifying aura was like a flood, covering the sky and covering the earth. It caused the sea below to rumble and pour in all directions. Its momentum was astonishing. It rolled up a tsunami and flapped its wings toward Du Xiaofu. This wing was not the attack of the giant fish. It obviously saw Du Xiaofu and the others. However, it did not even look at Du Xiaofu and the others. Its fierce eyes emitted a dark red light. It had been staring at the grayish-white scaled giant ape. That was its target. It had unintentionally covered Du Xiaofu and the others when it flapped its wings, causing Du Xiaofu and the others to suffer an unexpected disaster. With Du Xiaofu's speed, it was not difficult for him to avoid it. However, Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, and the little tiger could not do it. They could not withstand such a wing. At this moment, Du Xiaofu did not have time to lead the others away. He could only attack directly. Above the void above him, the clouds suddenly surged. Above the sky, dark clouds pressed down, and an abyss-like crack appeared. The surging power of the sorcerer god came from ancient times. His body suddenly expanded. As it condensed into a huge body of the sorcerer god, a handprint slapped toward the giant fish. As the handprint appeared, the phantoms of gods and demons chanted in the sky. The wind and thunder did not stop. Clanging sounds were heard, and the space was distorted. Terrifying energy suddenly came from all directions with a huge pressure quietly spreading. It was as if the world in this space was shaking. It was shocking. Rumble. Such a handprint brought about a strange phenomenon in the sky. It was as if it had brought about a spatial storm. There were the sun, the moon, the stars, and all living things in the world. All of them were annihilated. The sea below was like countless bombs exploding. The surging waves surged and spread in all directions. This was the power of Du Xiaofu's ancient sorcerer god. Under the handprint, the space collapsed inch by inch, and a pitch-black spatial vortex was torn apart. The two of them suddenly collided. When they collided, the surrounding space distorted and cracked into countless tiny cracks. They covered the surrounding space like a spiderweb, and dazzling shattered runes that covered the sky and covered the earth erupted. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. The power shrouded the world. The tides in the sea rose, and the sky changed color. Sizzle! The giant fish's huge body was pushed back in a straight line. Its black and red eyes were filled with shock. It stared at Du Xiaofu in shock. Du Xiaofu's ancient sorcerer god body also staggered back 2 steps before stabilizing his body. His eyes were also filled with shock. The peak of the initial stage of the Sage Realm. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. This giant fish's cultivation level should have reached the peak of the initial stage of the Sage Realm. It was perhaps only 1 step away from the intermediate stage of the Sage Realm. As an ancient demon beast of this fearsome land, it was exceptionally powerful. Woo-woo! There were red and swollen marks on the giant fish's body. Those were the places where Du Xiaofu's handprint had landed. It seemed that it had suffered a great blow. After stabilizing its huge body, it flapped its wings again and pounced towards Du Xiaofu. Boom! This time, the giant fish took the initiative to attack Du Xiaofu. It was like a rock flapping its wings. Wherever its huge body passed, the space would explode. It could make one's soul tremble. Large spatial cracks hung in the sky. The surface of the sea was broken, and the waves rolled back. The space was in chaos. Du Xiaofu's eyes were sharp. In this fearsome land, he always wanted to end the battle quickly. He would not show any mercy. Moreover, there was a terrifying giant ape with gray and white scales watching from the side. The giant ape's aura was not inferior to the giant fish's. He had to be careful. Boom! Du Xiaofu flew out. Instead of retreating, he advanced. His huge ancient sorcerer god body was much smaller than the giant fish. However, the aura that erupted from his body was unparalleled. The mysterious runes shone brightly, and the voices of gods and demons were incessant. Du Xiaofu clenched his 5 fingers. The power of the sorcerer god intertwined like lightning. He condensed it into a fist and pounced towards the giant fish. The speed was too fast. With a bang, the two collided again. In an instant, the pitch-black light and the aura of gods and demons burst out at the same time. The void and the depths of the sea were constantly rumbling. Chi-la! The giant fish was pushed back again. It was even more embarrassed than before. Its eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. There was also a hint of dread in its eyes. The eyes of the giant ape with gray and white scales on the side of the void also rippled. Its face was solemn as it stared at Du Xiaofu. It seemed to have some kind of vigilance as it asked, "You're a human. Who are you? So you're not together?" The giant fish steadied its body and looked at Du Xiaofu. It was a little surprised. It seemed that it had thought that this human and the giant ape were together. It turned out that the two of them did not know each other. Chi! Above the void, there was a fluctuation again. The entire void was affected and trembled slightly. A huge ferocious bird spread its wings and flew over from afar. Its aura was so strong that it made one's soul tremble even from afar. "Human, you're also here for this treasure? Then I'll let you have it!" Looking at the huge ferocious bird that was flapping its wings, the giant fish opened its mouth and suddenly spat out a bright light, which swept towards Du Xiaofu like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 2262. Translator, H2DH2. Mr. Du Xiaofu's heart suddenly trembled when the resplendent, flowing light shot out. The rock blood boiled in his chest, as if a raging fire was burning within. Roar! At the same time, the originally shocked giant ape roared. Its gaze suddenly locked onto the resplendent, flowing light spat out from the giant fish's mouth. Its ferocious eyes blazed, and it immediately pounced out. The giant ape's speed was too fast. Its giant hand moved, its blade-like fingertips tearing through the void like iron hooks, slightly curved. gray-white light flickered as it grabbed at the object of the resplendent, flowing light. It's a treasure. Perhaps it has something to do with the golden-winged Great Rock clan. Du Xiaofu's gaze darkened. He had not wanted to interfere at first, but since that object could cause such a violent reaction from him, it seemed to have something to do with the half of the golden-winged Great Rock bone that he had originally merged with. No matter what, he could not let it go. Get out of the way! Du Xiaofu roared. His figure dashed out, his massive body of the sorcerer god also drifting like a god. With a wave of his right fist, the aura of the gods and demons surged, emitting a deep light, exploding directly towards the giant ape. Blocked by Du Xiaofu, the giant ape was enraged, but it did not dare to be careless. Fury burned in its eyes, a cold light gushing out. It also shook its arm, colliding with Du Xiaofu. Clang! A muffled clang rang out, accompanied by the sound of wind and thunder. It was as if metal and stone had collided, deafening. Humph! A muffled groan came from the giant ape's throat, and its massive body was directly knocked back. Du Xiaofu's figure swayed slightly, and he took the opportunity to collect the resplendent flowing light directly into his hand. Under the resplendent light, Du Xiaofu saw that it was actually a broken bone, with only half of it remaining. The broken bone was not large, only the size of a baby's arm and about the length of a palm. It emitted a resplendent light. As the object fell into his hand, Du Xiaofu's body trembled as if he had been electrocuted. There was a mysterious power within the broken bone, as if it could connect with his body. There was an inexplicable connection between them. However, Du Xiaofu could clearly sense that this broken bone did not come from the golden-winged great rocks. The giant ape stopped its retreat. Its huge arms were spasming, and the scales on its fists were cracked. Blood flowed out continuously. Its ferocious eyes were filled with terror as it stared at Du Xiaofu. At the same time, the giant fish spread its wings and soared into the sky to escape. Demonic ape, what's going on? The ferocious bird spread its wings and flew over. Seeing the giant fish fleeing, it immediately shouted. That thing has already fallen into the hands of this human. Let's work together. The giant ape, who had been replaced by the demonic ape, stared at Du Xiaofu. Its aura was monstrous, and the mist behind it surged violently. In an instant, it pounced on Du Xiaofu. This time, it waved its arms and condensed two claws, twisting the void. The giant ape was huge, but its speed was incomparably fast. It was even faster than lightning. In a flash, it was in front of Du Xiaofu and grabbed at Du Xiaofu's heart. Du Xiaofu's eyes were cold. Without any hesitation, the huge body of the sorcerer god dissipated, turning into a human-shaped shadow that floated back like lightning. In an incomparably mysterious way, it seemed dangerous, but it completely avoided the sharp claws of the demonic ape. It's actually a puny human. You're courting death. At this moment, the ferocious bird made its move. It was ruthless and fierce. It spread its wings and broke through the sky. Its curved claws tore the space apart, like a falcon hunting its prey, and grabbed at Du Xiaofu. Boom! At the same time, Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with dazzling golden light. Behind him, golden light shot out in all directions, and a terrifying aura swept out. The rock's golden wings spread out from Du Xiaofu's back. In the golden light, golden talisman patterns flickered. It was as if there was a shadow of a rock with golden wings spreading out. It soared into the sky, and its power was rolling. At the same time, the azure spirit armor covered Du Xiaofu's body layer by layer. It covered the surface of his body, and the cries of the rock pierced through the clouds and cracked the stones. An incomparably domineering aura swept through the void. In an instant, Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Under the flapping of the rock's golden wings, a huge golden vortex was formed. The golden ancient talisman patterns were dazzling, and it was as if countless golden lightning bolts were flashing. It produced a buzzing sound of wind and thunder, and the void was distorted. It was as if there was a rock with golden wings screaming and roaring, and it directly collided with the ferocious bird. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's body shape and the ferocious bird were no doubt the difference between an ant and an elephant. However, The domineering aura on his body was like a real rock that was born. It spread its wings and looked down on the world, suppressing the world. This was the supreme beast ability of the rock. It was as if it could cover the ancient times with a flap of its wings, strike down the stars, shake the world, and suppress the world. Rumble! The two collided directly, and it was as if the void was about to shatter. The golden talisman patterns flickered, and the golden light was dazzling. It was as if countless golden lightning bolts were flashing. In the end, they lined up on the strange boundless sea and surged for thousands of miles. "Are you a human or a descendant of the rock?" The ferocious bird was pushed back. Its sharp claws were bleeding, and one of its wings was broken. Its sharp eyes revealed an expression of disbelief. It was as if it didn't expect the human in front of it to be so strong. The terrifying aura was clearly that of a descendant of the supreme beast race, the rock. The pressure came from the depths of its bloodline and beast soul, and it was enough to make the bird tremble. "Even if you are a descendant of the rock, you still have to hand over that thing." The dark ape arrived. Its huge body was like a mountain, and it appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. Its aura was monstrous, and it seemed to have used up all of its strength. Its grayish-white scales opened, and it emitted a bright light. It clenched its fist and exploded with a dazzling divine light. Its fist also became crystal clear, and it blasted towards Du Xiaofu. Wherever the fist passed, the space was distorted and cracked. "Star-shattering fist!" The rock flapped its golden wings and moved. Du Xiaofu also punched out, and there was nothing fancy about it. Borrowing the power of the rock's golden wings, and complementing the star-shattering fist, the space where the fist passed was compressed and directly exploded. In the end, it collided with the dark ape's huge fist that was like a meteor. At the moment of this collision, the space directly exploded, and the sharp sound of metal clashing could be heard. Rumble! Terrifying energy runes rippled out, and the surrounding space exploded like fireworks, turning into a vacuum. Du Xiaofu's fist was numb, and it was a little painful. But at this moment, the dark ape's huge body was directly pushed back, and it let out a miserable cry. Its huge fist that was like a meteor was shattered, revealing the white bones and dripping with blood. The dark ape and the ferocious bird retreated together, and each of them looked at Du Xiaofu with a shocked expression. They didn't dare to casually attack again. Ouyang Shuang, Little Tiger, and the others saw the sudden outbreak of a great battle and had already retreated far away. They knew that they didn't have the strength to interfere and would only be a burden. Du Xiaofu soared into the sky, shining with golden light and covered with the cyan spirit armor. He was majestic and domineering, looking disdainful and fierce. Looking at the dark ape and the ferocious bird, Du Xiaofu was also secretly surprised. The giant fish and the two monsters were definitely not experts from the Kyushu domain of the 3 continents. They seemed to be the surviving species of this fearsome land. Originally, Du Xiaofu had met the monsters along the way, and thought that the creatures in this fearsome land had been affected by something. They were powerful, but had not completely developed a complete spiritual intelligence, and were just monsters. At this moment, it seemed that this was not the case. There were probably many secrets in this fearsome land, and there were still creatures living here. Just like in the space of the divine domain and the heavenly devil battlefield, these creatures were especially powerful. "Who are you?" The ferocious bird stared at Du Xiaofu, and its eyes flashed with horror. Its voice was sharp and intimidating, and it shook the soul. "Don't provoke me again, or I won't be polite anymore." Du Xiaofu replied like this, and he did not want to fight. Who knew what it would attract? "Hand over that thing, and we'll leave. Otherwise, you won't be able to escape. You're dead for sure." The dark apes stared at Du Xiaofu. They had to get that thing. After spending so much effort, how could they let a human who had suddenly appeared in front of them benefit? "Don't threaten me, and don't provoke me again." "Scram!" Du Xiaofu berated. Although he did not want to be entangled, he was definitely not afraid. That thing was definitely not simple. It seemed to be related to the golden-winged great ping bird race. Du Xiaofu could not hand it over, and he was interested in studying it. He might be able to gain a lot from it. Brat, you're too savage. You don't even know where this place is. The ferocious bird shouted, and its sharp eyes shone with a cold light. Let's join forces. I don't believe this human brat is that strong. The dark ape roared. That brat was strange and powerful, but it did not believe that brat could really resist their joint forces. As its voice faded, the dark ape and the ferocious bird exchanged a look. Their eyes were scarlet red, and their grayish-white scales opened. They leaped into the air and directly pounced toward Du Xiaofu. They waved their claws, as if they wanted to tear Du Xiaofu into pieces. Do it! The ferocious bird shouted at the same time. Its entire body was emitting light, like raging flames, and its aura was sharp and merciless. It spread its wings and waved its claws, and its terrifying aura caused the surrounding space to become blurry. Tens of thousands of huge waves were set off in the sea. The scene was horrifying. Such a ferocious ape and a ferocious bird joining forces was really shocking. Both of them were at the peak of the early stage of the Saint Beast realm. They were demonic beast descendants from before the Dragon Phoenix Great Tribulation. Ordinary Saint Beasts in the middle stage of the Saint Beast realm and the outside world were probably at the same level. At this moment, they joined forces, causing Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, and the others in the distance to secretly worry for Du Xiaofu. However, Du Xiaofu was unmoved. The light in his eyes became cold and sharp. Ping descends to the 9 heavens, suppress! Suppress! Rock chaos shattering claw! Primordial Emperor's seal! Golden light shone brightly, and the sea surged. The domineering will of the golden-winged rock clan descended. Gee! Golden talisman runes covered the sky and the sun. Golden light erupted from the claw print. The dazzling talisman runes raged like golden lightning. It was as if a golden-winged rock was about to spread its wings and soar into the 9 heavens. My house! There were also waves of strange and violent energy fluctuations that seeped out from the empty space and transformed into handprints that were bright red like the sun in the sky. They were multicolored and faintly emitted the roars of dragons, tigers, birds, and turtles. It caused the ancient sea region to shake endlessly. Its might was sufficient to suppress all living beings, move mountains, and overturn seas. It suppressed all living beings. Everything happened very quickly. The 3 figures collided. It was as if thunder was rumbling in midair, and a series of rune lights burst forth. Rumble! Rune energy shot out like fireworks, causing the entire sky to be resplendent. Chapter 2263. At this moment, above Du Xiaofu's figure, there was a huge golden-winged rock shadow. Its domineering and terrifying aura overflowed, sweeping across the sky with its wings wide open, as if it was the supreme being, crushing everything in its path. Roar! The flying ape roared again and again, like thunder. Puff puff! The flying ape and flying ape's huge bodies were sent flying, large mouthfuls of blood spraying into the sea like rain. The flying ape's feathers were scattered, half of its wing bloody, bone visible. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, and there were 5 deep gashes on its back, flowing with blood and difficult to heal. One of the flying ape's palms was shattered, blood dripping. Its face was as pale as ash, blood dripping from its hideous mouth. It was a tragic sight. Too strong, let's go! Kid, you can't escape, just wait! As the voices rang out, 2 huge figures flew away. The flying ape and flying ape already knew that the other party was too strong. Even if they worked together, they would not be a match. From the other party's aura, it was not difficult for them to feel that the other party was not a merciful person. Looking in the direction that the flying ape and flying ape had fled, Du Xiaofu had no intention of chasing after them. His blue spirit armor and golden rock wings retracted, his eyes focused. Before he could react, he had suddenly encountered 3 terrifying monster experts. He had no idea what had happened at all. This made Du Xiaofu a little confused. Fortunately, with his current cultivation and strength, there was no need to be afraid. Are you all right? Ouyang Shuang and the others immediately went forward. We can't stay here for long. Du Xiaofu looked at the vast outline ahead and said, Let's go ashore first. Swoosh, swoosh. Several figures left, and Du Xiaofu and the others did not encounter any more obstacles on the remaining stretch of the road. It was probably the battle just now and the terrifying aura that made the monsters in the nearby sea area not dare to approach at all. The mountains rose and fell, overlapping one another. The murderous aura that filled the air had lessened considerably, and gradually, more vitality appeared. Occasionally, some greenery could be seen on the mountain tops. I feel the aura, it's in the depths. Du Xiaoqing landed on the ground. Green and red flames flickered in her eyes. She sensed a familiar presence, but it disappeared soon after. Du Xiaofu found a karst cave in the valley and set up a seal. He wanted to study the mysterious half of the broken bone. Everything seemed to be related to that half of the broken bone. In the cave, Du Xiaofu took out half of the broken bone. It had already lost its light and was completely black. There were traces of talisman scripts on it, as if they were naturally engraved on it. It was simple and unadorned. However, holding this half of the broken bone in his hand still made Du Xiaofu feel some kind of invisible connection. The rock blood in his chest boiled and trembled. Where did this broken bone come from? Du Xiaofu looked at the broken bone in his hand. Perhaps this was the bone of a powerful demonic beast. He had a feeling that this broken bone was related to the golden-winged great rocks. Then Du Xiaofu wanted to comprehend the broken bone, but he suddenly frowned. Du Xiaofu injected qi and the power of his primordial spirit into it, but there was still no reaction from the broken bone. Why is there no reaction? Du Xiaofu was puzzled. He tried several methods he could think of, but there was still no reaction from the broken bone. This also proved that this broken bone was indeed not an ordinary object. Even with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation, he could not make it resplendent. It was impervious to water and fire, and could not be broken. This object seems to be the bone of a demonic beast. It seems very ancient, Ouyang Shuang said. It should be, but I can't figure out its mystery. Du Xiaofu was quite disappointed. He thought he could gain something, but who knew that he could not comprehend it, and even offended a few mysterious demonic beast experts for no reason. What should we do now? Those two Saint Realm demonic beast experts seem to be creatures of this ominous land. They may not let this go, Ouyang Shuang said. Counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. Let's talk about it when we meet them, Du Xiaofu said and put away the broken bone. He was not afraid of the dark ape and the ferocious bird, but he was worried that there were other Saint Realm experts here, or there was an even more terrifying existence behind the dark ape and the ferocious bird. It would be really troublesome at that time. This is not a place to stay for long. Let's leave first, Du Xiaofu said to everyone after pondering. In order to avoid unnecessary trouble, Du Xiaofu used the disguised divine technique and turned into a handsome and thin young man. He changed into a long robe and then left the canyon with Ouyang Shuang and Du Xiaoqing. In the depths of the mountain range, the murderous aura was getting weaker and weaker, and the vitality was getting stronger and stronger. Gradually, the sea of trees rose and fell. Everywhere was verdant and filled with an ancient aura. It was like a paradise. Du Xiaofu, Little Tiger, Ouyang Shuang and the others were secretly amazed. There's a spiritual herb! Du Xiaofu discovered that there was actually a spiritual herb in front of them. It was a spiritual herb that grew here. There was actually such vitality in this fierce land. An hour later, a stalk of precious medicine appeared in Du Xiaofu's hand. It was suffused with light, and the multicolored light scattered. Its fragrance assailed their nostrils, causing them to drool. This place is not simple. Du Xiaofu frowned. Not only were there spiritual herbs and precious medicines growing here, there were also many low-level demon beasts nearby. Someone is coming! Be careful! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu raised his eyes and looked ahead, and whispered to Ouyang Shuang and the others beside him. Whoosh whoosh, in just a few breaths of time, there was the sound of the air being torn apart. 3 figures streaked across the sky like lightning and landed not far in front of Du Xiaofu and the others. The three of them glanced at the precious medicine in Du Xiaofu's hand, but when their gazes landed on Ouyang Shuang, Dai Xingyu, Du Xiaoqing, Qing Luan, and Lil Qing, it was as if they had been electrocuted, and their eyes were dazed. Du Xiaofu looked at the three people who came. They were all around 30 years old and had extraordinary temperaments. The aura that spread out from their bodies was also very powerful, and they had all reached the domain realm. Judging from the vitality of the three people, it was not difficult for Du Xiaofu to know that the three of them were indeed young people. With their age and cultivation, their talent could be considered extraordinary. "What are you looking at? If you keep looking, I'll dig out your eyes." Seeing the three of them staring at her, Du Xiuqing's temper was not very good. "Who are you?" Sensing the aura on Du Xiuqing's body, the three of them were afraid and retracted their gazes. However, they secretly left their gazes on Ouyang Shuang and Dai Xingyu. "It's none of your business. Go away, otherwise we won't be courteous to you." Du Xiaoqing waved her delicate hand, and she was very displeased with the gazes of the three of them. "We're from the Goldbiter Rat clan. Our master is nearby." One of the three spoke to Du Xiaoqing while slightly raising his head. When he mentioned the Goldbiter Rat clan and his master, his eyes were filled with arrogance. Chapter 2264. Goldbiter Rats, these three are battle servants. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes immediately moved. He wasn't unfamiliar with the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan. Back when he was studying legalism, he had once seen a member of the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan defeat Su Hengdao of the school of vertical and horizontal. He had also once fought with a member of the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan, but he didn't expect these three to actually be battle servants of the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan. Du Xiaofu was also secretly puzzled. According to what he'd come into contact with, there didn't seem to be such talented battle servants in the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan. "So it's the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan. Then tell your master to scram further away, or else I'll tear him apart." The little tiger had long since been unable to restrain his temper. His voice was like a tiger's roar, and a deep dark light appeared in his pitch-black eyes. It was just the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan, there was nothing to be afraid of. "How arrogant!" As the little tiger's voice fell, a sharp shout rang out, berating the little tiger. The voice wasn't loud, but it was extremely penetrating, causing one's eardrums to tremble. Following that, the figure of a young man walked out. His figure was small and thin, but tall and straight. His hair was golden, and his eyes were also dark golden, flickering with divine light. His aura was powerful. "Ancient Goldbiter Rat!" Du Xiaofu's eyes moved, sensing the aura. That was the aura of the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan, but what made Du Xiaofu inwardly surprised was that the aura of this young man seemed to be much more powerful than the ancient Goldbiter Rats he'd seen before. This kind of strength wasn't due to cultivation, but the invisible might of a beast. Following the appearance of this small and thin young man were a dozen figures following behind him, all of them with extraordinary auras. The few in front seemed to be disciples of the ancient Goldbiter Rat clan, while the few behind clearly had the aura of a human, seeming to be battle servants. The small and thin young man's gaze was like a torch, sweeping past Du Xiaofu and the little tiger, but in the end, it landed on Du Xiaoqing and the Qing Wan like a celestial being. "I wonder which clan you two ladies are from? I don't want this precious medicine anymore. I'll give it to you two ladies. I wonder which clan you two are from?" The skinny young man's attitude immediately took a 180-degree turn. He took a few steps forward, and his gaze kept sizing up Du Xiaoqing, Qing Luan, and Xiaoqing. That gaze could not help but make people feel displeased. "Scram!" The little tiger couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't deal with those Sage Realm cultivators, but he didn't care about the Goldbiter Rats in front of him. Boom! When the shout rang out, little tiger's figure shot out at the same time. He shook his arm, and his 5 fingers curled slightly. A claw mark tore through the void with a faint golden light. There was a hint of tyranny in its violence, as it swung towards the skinny young man from the archaic gold-devouring rat clan. With the little tiger's current cultivation and strength, it didn't hold back in its attacks. Its claws rushed out, distorting the void. It was as if a huge tiger was about to pounce. Then, the tiger pounced on its prey, roaring through the forest and shaking the void. As if they hadn't expected the little tiger's strength to be so strong, the three young men who arrived first were shocked. On the other hand, the skinny young man from the ancient gold-devouring rat clan seemed much calmer, but he didn't dare to be careless. In an instant, he clenched his 5 fingers tightly. Instead of retreating, he advanced. His figure was like lightning, unbelievably fast. With a wave of his hand, a claw pierced through space and collided directly. The 2 claws suddenly collided, tearing through space and emitting a shocking trembling sound. Energy surged, and the vibrating void rippled like huge waves. Thump thump! Thump! Under such a tyrannical collision, the skinny young man from the ancient gold-devouring rat clan was shaken back. Faint traces of blood appeared on his palm. Only now did the skinny young man's expression change. The opponent's body was actually so strong. The body of the Goldbiter rat clan was indestructible. The little tiger was also shaken back a step. His situation was much better than the skinny young man from the ancient gold-devouring rat clan. However, there were faint traces of blood on his palm. Huh! Du Xiaofu was inwardly surprised. The skinny young man from the ancient gold-devouring rat clan was at the same cultivation level as the little tiger, but he was actually only slightly weaker than the little tiger. It was very strange. His aura was much stronger than that of an ordinary ancient gold-devouring rat clan member. Master! Seeing their master being shaken back, the 3 young men cried out. 3 sabers appeared in their hands. 3 terrifying auras soared into the sky. The 3 sabers slashed through space and attacked the little tiger. The 3 sabers were very extraordinary. They were at the half-step saint artifact level. Their secret runes were dazzling, and their auras were astonishing. Extraordinary weapons! 3 treasures that were almost at the saint artifact level had actually fallen into the hands of 3 battle servants. Du Xiaofu found it very strange. Back then, the half-step saint artifact heavenly dragon cover of the dragons could only be brought out by true dragon descendants when they went out. What's more, these were merely battle servants of the Goldbiter rat clan. Could it be the ancient gold-devouring rat clan didn't come from the beast region, but from this ominous land? Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up. He had made a shocking discovery. The Goldbiter rat clan was definitely not the ancient gold-devouring rat clan of the beast region. The ancient gold-devouring rat clan of the beast region didn't have such extravagance. No wonder he felt that the aura of the Goldbiter rat clan was different. It was much stronger. Perhaps the Goldbiter rats came from this ominous land. They were the true descendants of the ancient gold-devouring rat clan, and their bloodline was even purer. Bang bang bang! While Du Xiaofu was deep in thought, a series of muffled sounds rang out. Du Xiaoqing gracefully stepped forward and instantly attacked. Incomparably hot azure-red flames swept out. A terrifying pressure descended upon this area and directly sent the 3 battle servants flying dozens of meters. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and heavily smashed into the ground. You overestimate yourselves! Du Xiaoqing's ink-black hair was as smooth as a waterfall, reaching all the way to her slender waist. She was enchanting and graceful, but at this moment, her devastatingly beautiful face was ice-cold. The azure-red flames in her eyes were dazzling, as if they could incinerate all things. Roar! The little tiger let out a deafening roar as it attacked again. This time, it transformed into its true form. Monstrous black runes soared into the sky, while golden runes curled around its tiger claws. It seemed like it could completely crush the mountains below. Roar! The skinny youth from the Goldbiter rat clan had no choice. He seemed to be stunned by the little tiger's terrifying aura. His face was filled with shock as he revealed his true form of a Goldbiter rat that was only dozens of meters long. Its runes were resplendent, and its aura was swift and fierce. The 2 instantly exchanged blows. The little tiger was no longer the same as before. Its body was originally powerful, and its body had been refined by divine thunder. Moreover, it had comprehended the supreme beast ability of the dark sky tiger and possessed the supreme beast aura of the golden-winged pink clan. It had to be said that this gold-biter rat was indeed powerful. Its physical body, in particular, lived up to its reputation. It was even tougher than Vajra, and it was actually able to clash with the little tiger. Metallic sounds continuously rang out as runes shattered and swept out in all directions. However, this kind of battle caused the faces of the dozen or so people at the side to reveal expressions of shock and seriousness. After a dozen or so moves, the youth from the Goldbiter Rat clan was directly defeated. He was forcefully suppressed by the little tiger. His back was crushed, revealing white bones and dripping blood. He was suppressed under the little tiger's tiger claws. Roar! The tiger's roar was like a sudden clap of thunder. It was like a surging wave that shook heaven and earth. The little tiger's true form was suppressing the Goldbiter Rat. Its ink-black runes soared into the sky as it flapped its wings. A terrifying wave of air swept out. One could clearly see a wave of faint golden ripples undulating like a vast tsunami. It covered the sky and covered the earth. It was like a raging wave crashing against the shore, causing the surrounding earth to collapse. The sea of trees collapsed, and giant rocks were torn apart and turned into fine powder. The scene was terrifying. This kind of terrifying aura caused the souls of the remaining dozen or so people to tremble. The giant tiger's aura was too powerful. It was like a supreme beast roaring. Its roar could move mountains and rivers and suppress tens of thousands of beasts. It's the Dark Sky Tiger! It's from the Dark Sky Tiger clan! A girl from the Goldbiter Rat clan exclaimed. Her face was deathly pale, and her eyes were filled with fear. For example, the Divine Bird clan. She's from the Baifong Divine Bird clan. A young man from the Goldbiter Rat clan trembled. He looked at Du Shaoqing with fear. He could feel the aura of the Baifong Divine Bird clan. At this moment, the Goldbiter Rat suppressed by the little tiger had a complicated look in its eyes. The Dark Sky Tiger and the Baifong Divine Bird were definitely not something it had expected. Little tiger, spare its life first, Du Shaofu said. Looking at the reactions of the Goldbiter Rat clan members, he had too many doubts in his heart and wanted to ask for answers. I want to ask you something. If you want to live, you'd better answer me honestly. Du Shaofu went to the little tiger's paw and looked up at the suppressed Goldbiter Rat. He wanted to ask some questions. Looking down at Du Shaofu, the Goldbiter Rat was very surprised. This was clearly a human, but his status seemed to be higher than the Dark Sky Tiger and the Baifong Divine Bird. Was this human not a battle servant? What do you want to know? The Goldbiter Rat asked. It had obviously compromised. It had absolute strength now, and its life was under the little tiger's paw. It had no other choice. Then, Du Shaofu learned many shocking things from the Goldbiter Rat clan. As he expected, the Goldbiter Rat clan came from this fearsome ground. They were archaic remains before the Dragon Phoenix tribulation. Not only did the Goldbiter Rat clan live in this fearsome ground, but there were also many powerful beast clans. Among them were the Divine Bird clan, the Dark Sky Tiger clan, and other powerful clans that had long disappeared from Kyushu in the outside world. Many of the demon beasts here have been affected and haven't fully awakened their intelligence. What's going on? Du Shaofu asked the Goldbiter Rat, puzzled. Most of the places are forbidden and full of danger. Rumor has it that they were formed by the Great War of Extinction a long, long time ago. There are only a few places here that haven't been affected. It's because the experts of the various clans work together to block the corrosion of the killing aura. This wasn't a secret. The Goldbiter Rat's body didn't hide anything. Suddenly, the Goldbiter Rat seemed to have thought of something. It looked at Du Shaofu and asked in shock. Could it be that you're from the outside world? Just answer properly. It's not your turn to ask. The little tiger scolded unceremoniously. It exerted force with its paw, causing the Goldbiter Rat to vomit blood again. It was very miserable. Chapter 2265. How many Saint Realm cultivators are there? How strong is the strongest expert? Du Xiaofu continued to ask. He wanted to know more. Almost all the clans have Saint Realm cultivators. In any case, there are many. I don't know the strongest expert, but it should be a divine ancestor from the Divine Bird clan. Although the Goldbiter rat was unwilling, it could only answer honestly at this moment. It knew very well that the other party could destroy its body and soul at any time. Du Xiaofu's eyes narrowed. It looked like there were quite a few Saint Realm cultivators here. Du Xiaofu didn't ask this question in detail. With the Goldbiter rat's cultivation level, it probably wouldn't be able to come into contact with too many Saint Realm cultivators, so it wouldn't be able to ask much. However, Du Xiaofu was secretly surprised by the Divine Bird clan. It seemed that the Divine Bird clan had an extremely high status in this fearsome zone. There are many beast clans nearby. What are you doing here? Du Xiaofu asked. His sharp nascent spirit had already secretly scanned the surroundings. He discovered that there were many beast clans within a 1,000-mile radius, and they all seemed to be searching for something. The Goldbiter rat hesitated inwardly, then said, We were originally going to participate in the Beast Alliance meeting, but we received news that the artifact soul of a primordial saint artifact had appeared nearby. A human paragon had also appeared. We're currently pursuing him. We want to subdue that human as a battle servant and obtain the artifact soul of the primordial saint artifact. A human paragon, a primordial saint artifact. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and asked, Is that human paragon from the outside world or from here? That human came from here. It's said that he's very young, but very talented. The Goldbiter rat replied, not daring to hide anything. What's going on with the Beast Alliance meeting? Du Xiaofu wanted to know more. He needed to know more about the situation. The Beast Alliance meeting has been around for a very long time. It's held once every 1,000 years and is one of the biggest events for the beast race. At that time, the young supreme prodigies of the beast race will compete for the title of the Beast Alliance commander. The Lord of all beasts, the supreme of the beast race, the ruler of all beasts. As the Goldbiter rat spoke, his eyes rippled with yearning. The Lord of all beasts, the sovereign of the beast race, the ruler of all beasts, how awe-inspiring was that? Unfortunately, it also knew that with its cultivation base and strength, there was no way it could compete with those supreme prodigies of the beast tribes. The waves in the Goldbiter rat's eyes calmed down a little as it looked at Du Xiaofu. It gritted its teeth and continued, The Beast Alliance Convention exists for the sake of the human race. The human race is much stronger than before and has already affected the beast race. The Beast Alliance Convention exists to suppress the human race. Phew! Hearing the Goldbiter rat's words, Du Xiaofu let out a long breath. This was a fearsome land that existed before the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation. It seemed like the legends were true. Before the Dragon Phoenix Tribulation, the human race could only survive in the cracks between the various races. This ancient desolate fearsome land had always been sealed. There were still humans who had survived, but their situation didn't seem optimistic. However, they should be slowly rising. The Goldbiter rat looked at Du Xiaofu and felt that this human was the leader. He was even stronger than Dark Sky Tiger and Divine Bird Fong. It said, Human, I've already answered your question. You can let me go now. Otherwise, the experts of my Goldbiter rat race won't let you off. Don't threaten us. The Goldbiter rat race is nothing, the little tiger shouted. The Goldbiter rat was nothing. In the outside world, its third young master was the young master of the golden-winged Great Peng race. Even the Phoenix race had to avoid him. Little tiger, let it go, Du Xiaofu said. There were too many experts here. It was much more complicated than he had imagined. He didn't want to provoke too many strong enemies unless it was necessary. You're lucky. Go away. Don't run into me again. Otherwise, I'll kill you! Little Tiger shouted in a deep voice as he lifted his tiger claws. His enormous body instantly transformed into a black-robed young man. A domineering and fierce aura spread out from his pure pitch-black eyes. His awe-inspiring kingly aura caused the battle servants and gold-devouring rats in the distance to secretly tremble. The skinny young gold-biter rat immediately stood up and turned into a human. He didn't dare to stay any longer. He didn't even dare to look back. He immediately left with his followers. Raising his eyes slightly, Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and looked at the void. He seemed to be thinking about something. I found it. My race is here. Du Xiaoqing was very excited. Her eyes were suffused with green and red flames. No wonder she felt a certain connection as soon as she entered the ancient, desolate, ominous grounds. Her race was here. Perhaps we can find out about your origins this time. Ouyang Shuang was also happy for Du Xiaoqing. Little Qing had always wanted to find out about her origins all these years. How could Du Xiaofu not know? He took a step forward and arrived beside her. He placed his hand on her shoulder and said, Big brother will take you to the Baifang Divine Bird Clan. No matter what, we have to find out more about them first. Okay. Du Xiaoqing nodded. The smile on her face was like a blooming epiphyllum. It was so beautiful that it could enter people's hearts. It was enchanting but holy. It was enough to make people remember her with a single glance. Third young master, did we forget to ask that rat for the address of the Baifang Divine Bird Clan? Said the little tiger. That's not important. The Beast Alliance Conference is a grand event for the beasts. Someone from the Baifang Divine Bird Clan should be participating. It should be easy to find out. Let's go there first and act according to the situation. We have to find out more about them first, said Du Xiaofu. Big brother Xiaofu, where are we going now? Dai Xingyu asked Du Xiaofu. I wonder what level an immemorial Saint Tuo's soul is at. I can take a look at it. It shouldn't take too much time. Du Xiaofu bent his index finger and rubbed his chin. Ordinary Saint Tuo's soul was not very attractive to Du Xiaofu. But the immemorial Saint Tuo's soul was very attractive to Du Xiaofu. He formed a hand seal and released his consciousness. He used the innate ability of the scarlet demonic monkey bloodline soul. In just a moment, Du Xiaofu withdrew his hand seal and a smile appeared on his face. The verdant mountains overlapped each other like the undulating waves of the sea. The mountains surged and surged, majestic and magnificent. In the distance, it was hazy. The fog was like a thin veil that covered the mountains, making them look indistinct. The misty clouds were sometimes far and sometimes near, sometimes far and sometimes far. It was like a few strokes of ink on the blue horizon. It was like a fairyland, full of spiritual qi. Swoosh, swoosh, several figures appeared in the void. Their auras were concealed. They were graceful and beautiful, each with their own merits. All of them were breathtaking. These figures were Du Xiaofu, Ouyang Shuang, Du Xiaoqing, Dai Xingyu, and a few others. It seems to be in there. Du Xiaofu's figure stopped as he stared into the depths of the mountain range. With the redbone horse monkey bloodline spirit's innate talent, the immemorial saint artifact soul he was looking for should be inside. Who is it? A sharp cry was heard as a human figure appeared in the air. It had 3 small horns on its forehead, and monkey-like fur on its body. Its eyes were dazzling, but its aura was extremely powerful. It was likely that it was not much weaker than the skinny youth leading the gold-devouring rats not long ago. Beast race. I wonder what its true form is. Du Xiaofu sized up the humanoid figure that appeared. It had turned into a human form, but it was not completely human. It was not common, and it was hard to know what kind of beast race it was. There were many beast races in this fearsome ground. They were all archaic descendants. Some of their bloodlines were not pure, and some of them had long disappeared from the outside world. It was hard to recognize them. Is it a beast race? Give me a stock of precious medicine and I will go in. Sensing the aura of Du Xiaoqing and the little tiger, the humanoid beast race did not even look at Du Xiaofu and Ouyang Shuang. He thought they were just Du Xiaoqing and the little tiger's battle servants. You're being robbed. Hearing the humanoid beast race's words, Du Xiaofu, Du Xiaoqing, and the little tiger were all secretly surprised. It had been a long time since they had been robbed. You have a few stocks of precious medicine on you. Hand them over and you can go? Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. He had spied that the humanoid beast race had a few stalks of precious medicine on him. He did not expect to be robbed. It had been a long time since he had encountered this kind of feeling. He actually missed it. Human, say that again. The humanoid beast race was also puzzled. He thought he had misheard. Did this battle servant want to rob him? Attack. Before the humanoid beast had even finished speaking, Du Xiaoqing had already made her move. Scorching green and red flames rose into the air. Roar! The little tiger's 5 fingers curled slightly. Claws swept out and tore through the void. Ink-black runes swept out. Bang, bang, bang. All of a sudden, muffled sounds rang out in the void. Runes collided and spread out in all directions. The humanoid beast race did not even have time to react before he was beaten silly by Du Xiaoqing and the little tiger. Moo! The humanoid beast race transformed into a huge 3-horned bull that was several hundred feet tall. His entire body glowed, and his hair stood on end. However, he was still crushed by the little tiger and Du Xiaoqing. In less than 10 moves he was drenched in blood. It was a tragic sight. He was completely suppressed. Let me go. I'm willing to hand over my precious medicine. The huge bull begged for mercy. Its eyes were filled with fear. It could feel the terrifying aura of a supreme beast race from Du Xiaoqing and the little tiger. They were existences that it did not dare to provoke. These two people had a great background. Then, all the external objects on the huge bull fell into Du Xiaoqing's hands. Next time you rob, you must be careful. Du Xiaoqing pouted. She was very satisfied with the harvest on the huge bull. She was in a good mood and let the huge bull go. Sigh, it's a pity that I don't have time to roast beef. Du Xiaofu only watched calmly from the beginning. When he saw the beast's true form, he felt a little regretful. He had not satisfied his appetite for good food for a long time. Other than dragon meat, beef had always been his favorite. Coo. After hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Du Xiaoqing, the little tiger, Dai Xingyu, and the others could not help but swallow. Their gazes were fixed on the huge bull as if they were looking at prey. The huge bull had just escaped from the suppression. When it saw Du Xiaoqing, the little tiger, and the others' special gazes, it could not help but feel a chill down its spine. It immediately ran away. You're tuning into the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.